at least for the pre-show. Hello, everyone. Hello. Let me just go ahead and let people know we are live while apparently Alex is trying to recreate the Hunger Games on his camera.
Just the first one.
Just the first one, yes. They learned their lesson. It wasn't there in the next two movies. They were just depressing as hell.
Yeah.
There we go. I don't know if anybody's noticed, but Facebook added something that's annoying the crap out of me. The fact that you actually have to use your mouse wheel to go down just one more to log out, instead of just giving me the full drop-down list and letting me log out. I know, first world problems, but jeez, it's just one damn option. I guess I'm the only one that noticed. All right. I guess so.
Yeah.
So welcome to the Geek News pre-show, everybody. So this is usually where we take on stories that just barely didn't make the cut.
Hold on. I got a bone to pick with you because I saw the agenda tonight. And spoiler alert for everybody, but there is a Dragon Ball related story in there. And I swear, this guy, anytime I bring an anime story to the agenda, it never makes it the cut or it just gets relegated to the pre-show. But there's a Dragon Ball story. Of course it makes the agenda.
Okay, you can have whatever bones you want to pick with me, but I'm not your problem. I was going to relegate that to the pre-show last week, and the listeners responded and said, we want to know what people think about this unique adaptation that's happening. Okay. And you have gotten anime stuff. I saw your little Pokemon part there, buddy. You have gotten anime stuff on the agenda. It does happen.
Never. I don't know. When's the last time it happened?
Like an anime related story from like News Network. I think the last time it was probably The Robber's Daughter made it to the agenda one week.
We never talked about it. Never.
It made the agenda. We just didn't necessarily get to that.
I don't even recall it on the agenda. It never made it as far as I'm concerned.
Well, your concern is not necessarily what I'm worried about here. It did actually happen.
It never did, I tell you.
Uh-huh. So, the bottom line is, I promise I will work on that better. But the problem is, Alex, the stories that you're picking aren't exactly relevant to everything else we're talking about. I try to make them work as best as I can.
Hey, I do my best to pick generally broad enough topics that can merit some discussion out of all of us.
Okay, I try to do that.
Meanwhile,
sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail.
Meanwhile, only two of you are going to be able to talk about Dragon Ball.
Well, I don't think we're going to be spending too much time on it, to be honest. But at this point, it's because it's listener request. So that being said, there's another listener request that Alex and me did need to get to. And because we ran out of time, we actually didn't get to it. Because I was going to pair it with the live action Gundam movie that was happening. And that was the announcement that along with the Blu-ray release of Mobile Suit Gundam Seed and Seed Destiny that was coming out, we also got the awesome announcement that not only would there be a brand spanking new dub that people could be able to enjoy, but they had worked out the details to be able to get the original dubs to be able to also be on that Blu-ray as well. And people actually reached out and said, holy crap, this is so amazing. We've heard you guys argue on Draken Shadow. What do you guys think about that? Now, we have addressed it on Draken Shadow 2, but let's get into it. So I like the idea. I like it because if I don't like the new dub, I can go back to the original dub and just enjoy it. But it actually allows for me to want to experiment with that new dub because now I at least have the safety and security of the original dub to be able to bounce back to, especially considering that a lot of the players in my house they're getting to a point where I can't read my old DVDs on them anymore. So like, and unfortunately, some of those old DVDs are my collection of Seed and Seed Destiny. So I'm actually very happy about this and have since reneged on my original statement of I'm going to get them. I'm going to get them. Obviously, Alex, I think you've said you're going to get them.
Oh, hell yeah. I'll have to wait and see what the final price tag, because this will be like probably a separate like special edition. So I want to see what the final price tag is going to be before.
Didn't we look at the price like in between recordings?
No, because it's not listed yet. Because it's
no, we looked at age. That's what we looked at.
We looked at age, but I don't know. We still don't have a store listing just yet for Seed and Seed Destiny. We don't even have a real release date, because we just know they're due sometime next year.
Well, aren't they working on the dub right now?
Yeah, I think they're still working. I think they're still dubbing it.
They're both okay, I can't remember the exact total of episodes, but I think they're both bordering on 50. So yeah, there's actually a lot of ground to cover. That's going to take a while to dub it.
Yeah, and considered it's both Seed and Seed Destiny, so we're we're talking a good 100 episodes here.
Yeah, because I think Seed is shorter, but only by like 2. I think it ends at like 48, and then Seed one of them is shorter than the other, and I think one of them is like literally 48, and the other one's 50. So
Seed Destiny 50. Oh, they're both 51.
They're both 51. Okay.
Granted, that's the original count. I think Sunrise might have done some tweaking that might change the count. I don't know. I've heard that the special whole remastered edition was a little bit different.
You know, the one thing we didn't cover on that recording, and welcome Romney, by the way. I promise we'll get to you, Romney. I promise. Did we cover the ending? Do we know what endings are going to be on that?
As far as
people might remember that there's actually 2 ending DVDs to Seed Destiny. One with what was considered to be the original ending, and then one that was actually supposed to be a different, more conclusive ending to it.
I guess that's a trend with MartAnimE, apparently.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it's a trend of Gundam. It's like one of the first few times I've seen them do it. But like they actually created a whole new DVD that basically has the last 2 episodes, but it extends the last episode like an extra 10-20 minutes.
They haven't said what. I'm sure I don't know.
Would it be safe to assume they probably have both?
Possibly. Yeah. I don't know. It really depends on what Sunrise is doing and what they want to do and what they already have in their Japan version of their special edition. So
yeah,
I shouldn't call it special edition. It's a remaster. And I've just heard, I don't know every detail. I just know that Sunrise did kind of go back and tweak the show a bit more, because it wasn't just a simple cleaning up the picture. They had to actually kind of reorganize some of it a bit.
Yeah, didn't they have to redraw some of the cells?
Probably. I think so.
Yeah, so I'm actually kind of excited for this one. And like I said, I wanted to pair this with the live action Gundam movie, but we actually ended up with a lot to talk about on that live action Gundam movie. So this kind of unfortunately had to fall by the wayside. Romney, do you have any thoughts on this one with Seed and Seed Destiny getting a remaster? It sounds to me like it's getting basically the works done to it.
Honestly, I don't really have much of an opinion, since I'm not as diehard a Gundam fan. So
yeah. I understand, but I'm at least excited. Like Alex can attest to it. I didn't, crap. I completely lost my thought. I wasn't going to buy this until they announced that the original dub was going to be in there too.
Yeah,
that was just going to be the way that it goes. So the next thing that we actually need to talk about, because, well, Alex found it and one other person did too. So this is going to be another example of Alex getting mad at me. But CyberConnect 2 actually just barely revealed that they're going to do a 2019 simultaneous release for a series of games they have coined the Trilogy of Vengeance. And Alex and me got into an argument this week because for some reason Drac in somewhere in this article read remake in there and officially convinced himself this was a remake. And therefore we had an argument which was like, no. So this only came out in Japan, right? No, it hasn't come out yet. No. It's a remake, right? And, no, Drac, it hasn't come out yet. So
yeah, it's an original new IP.
I think it's official. We can say that I have lost my mind or I've gone senile. One of the two.
Yeah,
probably both.
All right. So yeah, the 3 games include Fuga, Tokyo Ogre Gate, and Cecile, which are all supposed to be releasing simultaneously in 2019.
For Steam, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch.
See, the part that just blows my mind here is that, okay, so the way that they look is Fuga looks like it's got kind of a JRPG kind of strategy feel to it, but it's got cute and cuddly characters. Then when we get into Tokyo Ogre Gate, this thing looks a lot darker than that. And then finally, when we get to Cecile, it looks like it couples more with Tokyo Ogre Gate than it does with Fuga. So I know they're supposed to all be connected. I'm just not sure how.
They're not connected like directly. They're basically, because I actually looked into the article, and the idea is that the story of each of these games center around vengeance in some way, shape, or form. Basically, what they're doing here is kind of the equivalent of a film festival or those reflections contests that were in grade school, where people at CyberConnect 2 took all of their younger developers and just like, hey, here's a little thing. Come up with a concept of a game that's centered around vengeance. That's why in all of the little advertising inserts the article list, it shows, oh, it's blank X vengeance X blank. And so you've got 3 different games that are in 3 different genres that have 3 different niche appeals, but the common theme, and that's the key thing, the common theme is vengeance. They're not directly connected. It's not some weird multi-universe. It's just basically like an anthology where it's a case of, okay, well, these are all 3 different unique games that just happen to have the same theme.
Yeah, and so I think the three genres that we have, correct me if I'm wrong, the first one, Fuga, is more of a JRPG kind of style. The Tokyo Ogre Gate is more of a hack and slash brawler style, and then Cecile is supposed to be a 2.5D. I think it's it's a side scroller, so platforming but combat mixed in between, so like Castlevania.
Pretty much. I mean, it has the gothic theme as well, considering that it's about witches. So
it really does. The one that keeps on throwing me off is the. I think these are the playable characters on the image, and one of them is in a wheelchair. One of them is wielding a ginormous keyblade.
Actually, only the main one is actually playable. When you look at the details of the game itself, the main one with the umbrella, Cecile, is the main playable character. Those are just the side characters that help give context to the story, which the context is that, and this is probably going to sound insane, but you have to remember, this is a Japanese-developed game, so it should come as no surprise. Cecile basically follows the story of 4 sisters whose mother basically takes away the thing they love most in order to turn them into witches. For the one in the wheelchair, she was a dancer, so she lost the use of her legs. The one who's a little lowly had a very voluptuous body, and thus that was taken from her. I don't know what the third side character had lost, but the main character, Cecile, was a singer and lost her voice, and thus she embarks on a mission of revenge to basically take revenge on everything that was stolen from her and her sisters by killing her mother.
Aristelle becomes a sinner after losing her husband, who was a king.
So
that should answer your question.
Now, I also need to couple this with another story, because not only do we have the trilogy of vengeance, but a listener wanted to get specifically Alex and Romney's opinion on around. This was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. People might remember that CyberConnect 2 was actually part of the Final Fantasy VII remake. They have since been fired. Not fired, but creative differences. They're no longer working together.
Basically, Red is fired.
Yes, pretty much. Weird definitions. 2 or 3 weeks ago, we actually got brand spanking new screenshots for what Square Enix has been able to do with the Final Fantasy VII remake now that they are no longer working on existing CyberConnect assets. And I gotta tell you guys, because I'm going to put this up on my screen share and probably even in the actual article, I am not seeing much of a difference between CyberConnect 2 and Square Enix. So this is one of the scenes that they've now been able to put in, which is early on in the game. It's basically where Cloud gets cornered by a bunch of Shinra soldiers. But I could have sworn that we also had this already done in CyberConnect 2's version, and it looked strikingly similar to it.
Yeah, this looks very much just like a still from the initial concept trailer that we saw the first time they announced this remake. So
it really does. And so at that point, that's thrown a little bit of a red flag to a bunch of people. Another one that they have is, I believe it's a concept design of the second boss of the game, the Airbuster. Let me see if I can bring up that screenshot. Here it is. So it's basically a developer pick working on it, but here it is on the screen. So you can see it on the right screen right here. That is supposed to be the new Airbuster that they have created in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I don't think that this was covered specifically in the CyberConnect 2 stuff, but I don't remember seeing every little bit of that trailer. So thoughts on how that looks along with the whole trilogy of Vengeance. It sounds to me like the bottom line that you could get out of this, people, is simply CyberConnect 2's moved on. Why can't Square Enix do that?
Because they have a big cash cow that they're trying to resuscitate because 13 didn't take off the way they hoped it would.
Or 15.
Well, 15's doing better.
15's doing better, yes.
Yeah, and the main difference is that 15 decided, hey, let's not try to remake 7 and kind of try to do our own thing, which has paid off a little bit.
We shouldn't go downstairs and pray to the altar of Cloud and Sephiroth?
Why pray to the altar of Cloud and Sephiroth when you can basically make a JRPG featuring a boy band and not have to write any music?
True. This is actually true. So with that being said, so final thoughts on the trilogy of Vengeance along with these new screenshots. I hate to say it, just given the evidence that's been presented to me, I think they're still using the CyberConnect 2 assets, and I would think that's against their agreement, isn't it?
Well, yes and no. It's a tricky thing considering that Square contracted CyberConnect 2. And so, as part of that contract, they could still hold the rights to any assets CyberConnect 2 created as part of their deal with Square. And I actually did just stumble across a fact. So, Adam, technically, you're right with one of the trilogy of Vengeance. It's not technically a remake, but it is a sequel to an older series.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fuga is an entry in a title in a series called Little Tail Bronx, apparently. So you were half right that it is a remastering of sorts. It just happens to be a sequel to a series that nobody's really heard of outside of Japan. So
okay, yeah. Cool. I'm not going senile. Yay! Okay. That's always a plus. Alex, your final thought, especially on the Final Fantasy ones. Do you think they're still using the CyberConnect assets?
I don't know. Because I don't remember much. I don't remember even seeing screenshots of what CyberConnect's assets were or what they had built at this point. So
yeah, I don't even know how far they got.
I'm not a Final Fantasy player, so I kind of really don't care that much. As far as what CyberConnect is doing, I am excited because it is essentially mostly new IP, a new IP series out of them. It's fun to see kind of another sort of almost interlinked trilogy, but probably not going to be as story heavy dependent as their .hack entries were. So it would be easier to just pick one or the other up if that's what you're interested. And well, the title what am I trying to say? I can't help but think with the title being about and the whole theme about being revenge, this is their little subtle jab at Square Enix for booting them off of Final Fantasy.
Yeah. I mean, the best thing that this says in this whole debacle is CyberConnect 2 has moved on. They're working on new projects. They're working on new IPs, and suck it, Square Enix. Pretty much. So our final pre-show story, this actually just barely broke a couple of days ago, and unfortunately, it flirts with that ever so popular line, and that's why it kind of didn't make the actual agenda. But we just barely found out a couple of days ago at San Diego Comic-Con that James Gunn has been fired from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. And the reason being for this, and this actually came back to kind of haunt them at San Diego Comic-Con, as 10 years ago, roughly 2008, 2009, James Gunn was a completely different person, especially on Twitter. And he decided to, the way that he puts it is he thought of himself as a provocateur. And he liked to provoke people on Twitter, aka a Twitter troll, and decided to put up a bunch of random tweets, most of which involving little boys. And those tweets got unearthed roughly at San Diego Comic-Con. He got confronted about them, and they were enough of a hot button issue that Disney and Marvel have just said, you know what, we've got to separate ourselves from you, dude. Even though the interesting part about the whole story is he technically apologized 5 years ago for the tweets of 10 years ago and said that he was a completely different person. He was trying to be a provocateur, as it were, but he has since kind of moved on from that and has a completely different viewpoint on life, as well as on how Twitter works and things like that. And he even apologized at San Diego Comic-Con saying, look, I've technically apologized for this before, but I'll apologize again. And yeah, so that's roughly the story here, is that unfortunately James Gunn has been fired from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 for actions that he took roughly 10 years ago. And so really quickly, and we're going to try very hard not to go into the hot button issue, but thoughts on this. Is Disney in the right? Is James in the right? How do you actually see it?
I can see why Disney did it. I don't want to necessarily call them right or wrong on it. It's just it's a business decision they had to make at the end of the day, and I guess just as a business decision, it does make sense, and it is kind of right, just because it's obviously by the time Guardians 3 would be coming out, then there's going to be the whole stupid shit storm of here's what James Gunn once said on Twitter, 10 years ago, and it's a damn shame that old shit has to be held against you, but once again, it's just that ever cautionary tale that you really got to be careful what you put online. Once again, I brought this up like last time, some other time we talked about writing about social networks. It's a quote from the movie The Social Network, and I think it's always apt to remember. The quote is, "It didn't stop you from writing it. Is as if every thought that tumbles through your head was so clever, it would be a crime for it to not be shared. The internet's not written in pencil, Mark. It's written in ink." So before you write something that you may regret a year, 10 years, 5 years from now, always remember that quote. The internet is not written in pencil, it's written in ink.
Yeah, and I've said it numerous times on the podcast that, like, what happens on the internet stays on the internet forever. It doesn't matter if you delete them. It doesn't. There will always be that one tiny fragment that somebody knows how to recreate. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, this is actually something that I'm tempted to get into a bigger discussion about, is just kind of the impact of what social media is doing with society, especially these days, and especially in geek culture, where we're having issues like this, that people can unearth stuff you said 10, 20 years ago. I know that it especially is affecting people like in the job market. Like if you want to be able to get a legit job now, you not only get background checked in the usual ways, you also get background checked in social media. And is it necessarily fair? No, but well, life just kind of isn't. So at that point, you really do need to watch what you say on Twitter and consider the fact that there's a degree of anonymity, but eventually crap can get traced back to you. I mean, even if you keep your individuality off of that Twitter, we've seen numerous cases where people have been able to trace the ISP and figure out where you are, kind of thing. And not just police, like hackers can do it and therefore dox you and put out all this crap online. Romney, your take on the James Gunn situation.
Honestly, it's unfortunate. Like Alex said, it basically looks like it's purely a business decision and nothing more than that. I mean, it kind of sucks that something that someone spoke about and then apologized for 10 years ago caused them to lose a job today. But at the same time, that's the nature of where we're headed as a society, unfortunately, is that, well, it's very much, it sucks. I'm just not as invested because I'm not a big fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy films, so I'm not particularly upset by this because I don't care. It's unfortunate, but I just don't care.
Well, no, I mean, here's the way that you can look at it, and you've kind of addressed it, is like, you can now be like scrutinized for stuff you might have, because here's the thing, like social networking, for at least for me, is I was probably just barely in college when I started experimenting with social media. There are kids now who are literally starting up on Facebook and Twitter in high school. And now, like, if they try to get a job in like their 20s, people can look this stuff up and see like how much of a douche nozzle they were in high school, and that will literally count against them.
Yeah, like The Onion literally made an article saying most Americans now unelectable thanks to Facebook.
Yeah, pretty much. And
that is why they're I don't know if if they are statewide things or just citywide things, but there are places now that are looking into like laws to prevent businesses from digging through your social media history. So I think that kind of goes down another discussion. It's like, right?
Well, and
I've lead to more legislation like that.
I don't know if you guys have heard this, but I've already heard about people trying to levy up lawsuits against not necessarily just social media platforms, although some of them have actually have cited like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or something like that as their it's not plaintiff in a civil one. Is it plaintiff in a civil one?
Well, yeah, I think it's plaintiff is the one suing. Defendant is the one being sued.
Yeah. So they're claiming defendant, or Twitter is like the defendant in that, and basically kind of suing them for slander, even though it wasn't necessarily them that did the slander. It's just the fact that they allowed for stuff to be available this far back into people's backgrounds, kind of thing. And so we might actually, in the next 5 or so years, actually start seeing lawsuits being levied towards social networks as well as to companies for not even giving a proper chance, even though the tweet or the Facebook post that they're accusing of happened this many years back. And I mean, I think all of us are old enough to a point where we kind of realize that in 10 years of life, a lot of stuff can happen. Like in 5 years of life, a lot of stuff can happen that can kind of reshape you.
Yeah, and looking at this, the other thing to consider, it raises the question of whether or not you want to consider things, and this is something we've discussed quite recently, whether or not these social media sites can be considered public forums, and how much that is posted there should be considered as, oh, you made that available for the public, and therefore it can be public record, as opposed to, okay, what is considered private? And I think that's kind of a key crux of legislation that people need to consider is, when do you consider a website like Twitter or a website like Facebook, when do you consider it a public forum, and when do you consider it a private space?
Yeah, it's definitely there's a lot of questions that need to be handled with social media. That's why I'm kind of wondering, like, if doing like a broader discussion on it and kind of going into like being on social media and being like a YouTube creator or being a filmmaker or a writer, and how that kind of affects you overall. I think that actually would be an interesting discussion. My final thoughts are, I've actually gotten a few people asking whether or not I would skewer the guy. And I've got to be honest, no, I won't. And the only reason I'm not going to is because, yes, I've read the tweets. Yes, they're deplorable. And yes, James Gunn should be ashamed of himself. But he already has been ashamed of himself. He apologized for them 5 years later. And then another 5 years, he even went out in San Diego Comic-Con and said, yes, I knew this was going to come back. And yes, I am truly sorry for saying those things. And this is the reason why I did it. And I'm not making any excuses. And that's why I don't, because the bottom line is that I've said this a couple of times on the podcast. I was a way different guy back when I was in my teens than compared to who I am now. So if I were to skewer James Gunn, I might as well skewer myself on that exact same pike, because that's the way that goes.
I mean, as the Bible itself says, judge not lest ye be judged.
Yes. So that's kind of we might address this later on if there are any other additional development, because it flirts so close to that political line. I mean, for crying out loud, the other thing that could be addressed here is that, and I would point out that, yes, social justice warriors occur on both sides of that political spectrum. Okay. Because the guy who unearthed a lot of these tweets is pretty much a right-leaning guy. Okay, so that they can exist on all platforms and all mediums and in all walks of life. You could technically go there, but we're not, because I really just don't want to go down that line.
Yeah, this isn't that kind of show.
No. I know that a lot of you guys would like us to be that kind of show, but there's a reason I don't want to be that kind of show.
Especially considering that there are already a bajillion other shows that cater to that sort of niche.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and get things started for the podcast. Let me go ahead and let me know when you guys are ready to go.
Sound speed.
Rolling.
And let me get out of here so that I don't lag things up, because I think it's already affecting Romney. All right, 3, 2, 1. All right. Here we go. Welcome once again to another awesome episode of Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, the podcast where we talk the week's events in Geek for Friday night, July 20th, 2018. I'm your host, Adam Mickelson, a.k.a. Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome week so far. For me, not so much. I had a little bit of an accident a couple of days ago, and now it makes me feel like I'm an old man. But in the meantime, though, we're not going to complain about that because we got plenty of geeky stuff to go over. And of course, I'm being joined by my usual panel of fellow YouTubers, fellow geeks, fellow awesome guys in general, fellow awesome content creators. And if you guys aren't following them, damn it, you should be. And we're going to start things off with Alex the Shadow Blazer, who has been very busy as of late. He's been putting up some reviews and some opinions. And then for some reason, people want me to comment about how I disagree with them, even though I haven't seen the exact same series that he has. Alex, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Yes, I did get some nice content out. I got the review out last week and got fired off some of my first thoughts about some of the summer anime that I've checked out. All in all, not bad. Some pretty all right shows to watch. Also, I just feel the need to actually share this. Just a sec. I gotta share this because I just found this on Twitter. Can you see it?
Man killing spider. Very nice. Can you send that to me so that we can put that up on the RSS feed, Alex?
It's in my Twitter feed if you want to find it.
Cool. I'll grab it there then.
You could also just look up the Twitter handle. You had one job. Great. Just grateful for funny pictures of the day. So just always. I also have
a little bit of business to conduct with you, my friend, and that is just simply that one of your audience members, I will not tell you who because they have sworn me to secrecy, but they have made one complaint of you, and that is that you don't have enough soccer in your life, and you need to fix that. There you go. I've done it for you guys.
I don't have enough soccer. What?
I think they're talking about Cardcaptor Sakura. I thought that finished.
Oh, Sakura. Yeah.
I misheard that as soccer. I'm just like,
I heard it as soccer too. I'm like, what? Why soccer of all things?
You don't have enough soccer in your life, my friend. I am mailing you both FIFA copies.
I mean, did they accidentally look up Captain Tsubasa when they meant to look up Tsubasa?
No. I said Sakura, but it came out as soccer. I don't know why.
Yeah. I must admit, I've not yet finished Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card arc. I keep meaning to get back to it, but then I get bogged down with 20 other shows I want to watch. So it might either I'll finish streaming it eventually, or I'll just wait for the Blu-ray from Funimation to finish it. One of the two.
Okay. Well, I've met my obligations, and just to make things even sillier, I think the episode title tonight is probably going to be "Everything is Better with FIFA." Just because why not?
It's just now. I don't kind of want to see how Clamp would do a soccer manga now. That would be a very weird chapter in Tsubasa where the main three characters, Xiaoran, Fai, and I forget the third guy. One of the worlds. Kurogane. They end up in a world where we have to defeat the enemy by playing soccer.
Great.
I'm surprised that never made it in the anime.
Honestly,
really crazy anime. There's a whole episode where they go into a storybook and Kurogane turns into Godzilla. So I'm surprised they never came up with a soccer-based episode.
Yeah, maybe if they decide to move the World Cup to Japan one of these years, maybe that's when they'll do it.
I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys, you are making my life harder because I don't know how many times anime fans have come out to me and said, you're too hard on sports anime. You need to try some. And then they recommend to me Free and Kuroko Basketball and Especially when I did the Shonen anime Why We Geek. I got recommended Kuroko Basketball I don't know how many times. Prince of Tennis has been recommended to me. Yuri on Ice because of figure skating. Yeah, so you guys are all making my life hard.
Okay, you guys recommend all the new stuff, but come on, where's the Hajime no Ippo love? Come on.
Crap, now that's going to get recommended. Thanks, Romney.
Hey, at least this one's
actually... I'll sit there and go, what is it?
Well, again, Hajime no Ippo, the shortest tagline ever. It's basically Rocky, the anime.
I'd actually probably watch that because the other boxing anime was actually pretty entertaining to me. And then we're obviously, since you've heard his voice, we also have Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, From the Shelf, Rhapsody in Cinema, Martial March, and as you have already announced on your channel, you are hard at work on the next upcoming Monster Clash. Stephen Romney, how you doing?
Well, doing all right. This week's had its fair share of ups and downs. On the one hand, I've been trying to exercise a bit more thanks to finding a Wii balance board at a pretty reasonable price, and I have to tell you, that game does not mess around. I never thought it would
get your tweet on it.
I never thought it would feel sore doing yoga. No wonder the Wii Fit trainer is so freaking strong.
I think somebody even replied to you later is like, yes, hashtag nerf Wii Fit trainer.
I haven't seen the reply, but all I have to say is that game is a lot harder, and I didn't realize that, okay, Nintendo actually made a really good peripheral. I kind of wish I had this back when it was in vogue. Back when because unfortunately our Wii Fit busted, and so I couldn't use it anymore. But when I was actually using Wii Fit to do workouts, for the record, guys, don't just do Wii Fit as your workout buddy, okay? Actually go to the gym. That does help out because Wii Fit can only work so many things. Mm-hmm. But it was actually pretty enjoyable. I couldn't do every single yoga pose, but yeah, Wii Fit trainer works your butt off. Mm-hmm.
And I'm thoroughly convinced, but I've never won an argument on this matter. I'm thoroughly convinced it doesn't matter. Like the female Wii Fit trainer is easy mode. The male Wii Fit trainer is hard mode. Because he gets hard on you.
Yeah, well, I have mine set to the female trainers, and the exercises, they don't seem to get any easier. But that's pretty much been my week thus far, is my step into trying to do Wii Fit and realizing this is a lot harder than I signed up for.
Yeah. So with that being said, so we have the panel here, and we also have plenty of actual stories to get into, especially considering the fact that this week, I believe, San Diego Comic-Con is going on. So we don't even have all of the stories related to that. But we do have a couple of announcements that were made at San Diego Comic-Con, starting with our first and top story of the tech portion of the evening. There is apparently an Uncharted fan film in the works. I don't know if you guys have actually seen the trailer for it. It's pretty entertaining, but it caters to an old Uncharted joke. Correct me if I'm wrong, Romney. Are you a fan of Uncharted? I can't remember.
Not so much a fan. I have beaten the first game. I tried playing the second, but let's just say the Phantom Pain kind of ruined other stealth games for me. So
you probably will know this pop culture joke that's been made over the years. And I think I've referenced it to you, Alex, when we started playing Uncharted together. But there was a joke that started happening on the internet a while back about how a certain Nathan Drake and a certain actor, Nathan Fillion, are actually very similar to the point where if a live-action Uncharted movie was to ever be made, Nathan Fillion should play Nathan Drake because they just feel like the exact same character. So much so, somebody actually pointed out to me, apparently Naughty Dog actually got threats of some kind of petition or lawsuit or something like that. I'm not even sure what, that they were ripping off Firefly because that was the most recent Nathan Fillion work that had happened.
What is with so many people tying rip-off things to Firefly? First you have the Outlaw Star comparison, then you have Uncharted. What is with...
Look at the same thing. Apparently, and Firefly...
What was funny about that, by the time I actually knew about that part of the story, I was a big fan of Castle. And he was one of the big two in that show. I was like, isn't he off busy doing Castle? I mean, I like him as Castle. I don't want to see him as Nathan Drake.
Yeah, I mean, we all have our favorite roles. My favorite is, I'm gonna look up the character real quick. Bear with me. Yeah,
but
let me just
while you're doing that though, so Alex, have you actually seen this trailer for the Uncharted fan film?
No, I haven't.
It's pretty good. It's a typical cutscene in Uncharted, but now people are actually legitimately excited to see Nathan Fillion play Nathan Drake.
Yeah,
and I'll give him compliments, man. He slimmed himself up for the role.
Yeah, looking at it, it's not a trailer. Like we've been uploading clips to various websites, but the full fan film, which is available, is about 15 minutes.
Yeah. And I haven't seen the full fan film yet, but I actually do want to see it since I've seen a few of the trailers. And it actually looks pretty damn good. I'm actually very interested to see what they're going to do with it, but it's just weird because they're catering to a very, very old joke of that Nathan Fillion should be playing Nathan Drake. And here you go. Nathan Fillion is playing Nathan Drake. So thoughts on it? I'm bamboozled. I thought that, like, I actually was not in that crowd. I didn't think Nathan Fillion should play Nathan Drake. And now I've kind of swung around. Now I'm kind of for it.
Well, yeah, and honestly, looking at it and even seeing some of the comments, between the two, I'd take Nathan Fillion over Tom Holland playing a young Nathan Drake because...
Yes, and this is the other thing that people wanted us to kind of comment on is the comparing Nathan Fillion to Tom Holland, who is going to be playing a young Nathan Drake in the actual paid-for film that is going to be based on Uncharted. And so if people don't know who Tom Holland is, if you've seen Spider-Man Homecoming, you know who Tom Holland is.
Yeah, Spider-Man Homecoming, or if you're like me and never saw it and only saw Civil War and Infinity War, he's the new Spider-Man.
See, and I think Alex and me would look at you, Romney, and say, you saved yourself.
Yeah.
I could see the writing on the wall. I'm just like, I know I'm not going to enjoy this, so I'm not going to pay my money to see it.
Because you saved yourself the guy in the chair. Oh, yeah. And
what was his name? Ned?
Is that his name? I can't remember anymore.
I can't remember either.
My niece, who absolutely loves Homecoming, and when I make fun of Tom Holland, she literally gets mad at me. Okay, like mad to the point of almost tears. She gets mad at me when I do that, and she gets mad that I'll never remember this kid's name, and it's simply because the kid annoys me so much that I don't want to remember his name. I psychologically block it out.
Yeah, though I did look up my particularly favorite Nathan Fillion role, and that is Jefferson Reed, Ace American. I'm not going to say much more because the title of it speaks for itself.
I need to see this now because that is a snazzy title.
Well, technically you don't see it, you hear it, since that is a character he played on the Thrilling Adventure Hour. And that's a really awesome podcast. I've mentioned it before, but it's the thing that's with Nathan Fillion, and I'm guessing why people like seeing him as Nathan Drake, is that as an actor, he's got this sense of comedic timing and almost this sense of self-awareness that he brings to the characters he plays, and people respond to that sort of thing, where it's like, because especially in an age where we're getting a lot of grim, gritty reboots of characters that take themselves way too seriously, it's kind of fun to have a hero who doesn't take themselves too seriously and often even makes fun of the situation themselves. And not in the forced Spider-Man way, but just more of a case of, okay, this is kind of weird and silly, but let's roll with it.
And if you look at it, like, especially if you've seen like Firefly and Serenity, then you know that Nathan Fillion likes to play that kind of hero where they don't necessarily see themselves as such and don't want to be called heroes. And that is technically kind of the character of Nathan Drake. He doesn't even like being called a thief. He just likes to be, he is Nathan. So at that point, I mean, I get why people want Nathan Fillion to play him. The difference being is that, like, unlike a lot of people, to me, they don't look the same. To me, they don't sound the same. To me, they are two different people.
True. But at the same time, though, it kind of speaks to, I guess, the strength of the character itself. Yeah. Where if the personality of the character, if someone can see an actor that you wouldn't normally associate with such roles, I mean, for example, it'd be like someone, when people mention the possibility of Idris Elba playing James Bond, it's kind of a case of, oh, well, that's an actor you can legitimately see playing James Bond. He may not look the way Ian Fleming described James Bond, but knowing his talent as an actor, it's a case of, okay, this is someone we can conceivably see as James Bond, and it's the same case with Nathan Fillion and Nathan Drake. People are saying, oh.
This is news to me. Idris Elba is officially the next Bond?
Not official. This was a rumor a while back before I believe they did greenlight another Bond film after Spectre with Daniel Craig. But that was a rumor for a while that after Spectre, because of how it didn't do as well, people were thinking, oh, for the next Bond reboot, Idris Elba was in consideration, causing a whole bunch of firestorms and talk show hosts to throw a hissy fit. But what else is new?
Dude, I'd be all for it because Idris Elba's an amazing actor, and even if you put him as a Bond villain, he'd be an amazing Bond villain too.
Well, yeah. Plus, when you consider the theory of James Bond itself being a code name, not being the name of the actual 00, but that name in and of itself being part of the code name, having a black Bond could make sense. I mean, given that we had Judi Dench as Q for a long time, which already clashed with Ian Fleming's depiction of, not Q, M, like Judi Dench as M, clashing because in the original James Bond novels, if Ian Fleming saw Judi Dench as M, he probably wouldn't like that, but again, M is a code name, so is Q. So James Bond is likely itself a code name, but back on point.
I don't even think he would have agreed with eventually because he's not Q, but John Cleese is R.
Yeah, but to get back on point, it kind of speaks to the love for a character. If people can see an actor that may not necessarily look the part, but it also speaks to Nathan Fillion's skill. People are saying, okay, we can see this actor bringing this character to life, and we can see this as a faithful version of the character.
Yep. So we need to kind of wrap this up so that we can move on into other stories. But final thoughts, Alex, do you like this pairing? Do you think it's just dumb because of the joke, or would you actually like to see Nathan Fillion playing Nathan Drake?
I'll have to actually maybe check out the trailer to kind of form a final opinion of whether I think he'd be good. I know certainly he probably has the looks down, but I'll be honest, I think when I think of Nathan Drake, I probably think more Nolan North than I would Nathan Fillion, even if it's like this was kind of borrowed a bit.
See, and if I was actually going to go down that road, I don't know if I'd actually, people might skewer me, but if you're going to, because this is going to be like a movie reboot kind of style, I'd want to hand it over to Liam Hemsworth. I think he's actually the closest that the original Nathan Drake model kind of looked like in the original PS3. Nathan Fillion is great and all, don't get me wrong. I love his acting, especially when you put him in roles like Castle where it's just him being him. But yeah, like you have to cast an action hero. So at that point, I would probably want to give this to a young up and coming Liam Hemsworth and let him kind of stand out of the pack.
Problem is he's kind of considered box office poison at this point, which is why he hasn't.
Yeah. Well, again, if you were going to do this, I would actually say do it around the time when because he looked good in the Hunger Games. Don't get me wrong. He looked really, really good. I would actually have said, Liam, come here. Don't go do Hunger Games. That is way too depressing. You need to do Uncharted. Need to do Uncharted.
Now, a better thing would be like, oh, okay, Liam, don't do Paranoia. That is going to kill your career. Go over to Uncharted. That will keep you relevant and out of your brother's shadow.
Oh crap! Actually, that how many Paranoias did he do? Or well, no, sorry. I'm thinking a completely different series. Never mind.
Yeah, this was one movie based on a questionable quality novel. Basically, and I remember this because I had to review it. It was not good. I mean, nobody in that film came out looking good. Gary Oldman, Harrison Ford, nobody looked good in that movie.
Not even Gary Oldman could save it.
Not even Harrison Ford could save it, and you could watch him in almost anything.
All right. So I think that kind of wraps things up. If you guys want to check out the Uncharted fan film, we'll see if we can put a link in the RSS feed so you guys can check it out. Let's go ahead and move on into our next story, which is more gaming industry silliness. And in fact, Alex, I think, found this article and it made me laugh as soon as I saw it. So people might remember a fiasco that came out a few years ago by the name of Alien Colonial Marines. It was made by Sega. And in fact, a lot of people blamed Alien Colonial Marines along with Sonic 06 as saying Sega's out of touch. They can't do their job. And
well, to clarify, Sega published it, but it was actually developed by Gearbox.
It was developed by Gearbox, and a lot of people don't necessarily acknowledge that. But a lot of people do remember that I believe at like E3s and other conventions, Colonial Marines looked amazing. But when they got it in their hands, it was very, very, very lackluster. Okay. In fact, to the point of, I've even seen I haven't played Colonial Marines, but I've seen videos where the Xenos are running in place. They're running into walls. They're constantly trying to run into you. They are the dumbest AI that has probably been produced that particular year. Well, it turns out that it wasn't supposed to be that way, as the article that we're reading is from Polygon. Apparently, all you had to do was fix a minor spelling error within the code, and the AI dramatically shifts to being somewhat difficult. So I'm not going to go into the whole details of like what got misspelled, because that actually means translating code, which is not that easy to do in a podcast format. But
that's
basically,
right there. But
yeah, they do a kind of a basic. What I'm saying is, I'm not going to read the actual code. The explanation that they have is basically, if you add a specific element and it doesn't do anything, it's basically empty or stripped. But if you attach a different element to it, it does a lot. It controls tactical position adjustment, patrolling, and target zoning. And so they actually did have a comparison of the original AI is it xenomorphs? Is that what they're called?
Yep.
Yeah, xenomorph.
So I haven't watched Alien, guys. Don't jump down my throat. But the xenomorphs in the original Colonial Marines, they don't behave well. They're easy to kill. I think even in hard mode, they're fairly easy to kill. This time around, though, they actually started to frustrate the devs and those who are and the modders who actually found this problem. And so they actually became a challenge. Heaven forbid. It's funny what tiny little things get overlooked in development, in publishing, in distribution. And that changes the whole game.
All for the want of a simple typo.
Yes. This game failed because of a simple typo, guys. That's ridiculous. So, just really quick, I didn't play Colonial Marines. Alex, did you play it at one point?
No, I never played it.
Okay. Romney, did you play it?
Nope, mainly because I saw the reviews, and I was never even really into Alien as a franchise, so it wasn't really on my radar. Yep.
So I've seen the videos since. Like, I've seen the AI in reviews that got shown off, and it is ridiculous on how stupidly easy they were. And I have since seen some videos that came from the modders that actually put this into place. And there is a significant difference in how they play out. It's actually kind of almost horrifying how smart they are at that point. Like, a lot of the time, to give people a comparison, like, they would just rush you in the original Colonial Marines that went out. When you change this around, they actually crawl around a lot more. They'll get into the vents and try and get behind you. They, I believe if there's one or two of them out there, they actually kind of strategize to flank you. It's kind of freaky, in all honesty. And it's just, it makes you feel so bad. Like, if this was the game that people got, would it have gotten half the bad reviews that it did?
Yeah. Though, in defense of Gearbox, given what we know now about what it was like to work on the game and the fact that they had Sega breathing down their necks, the fact that there was a typo isn't so much, oh, they're bad programmers. It was more, no, they were under a very big time crunch to get the game out the door at a release date that they did not plan for, and they needed more time, but they couldn't get more time. So that seems to be a case of that was what happened. That was even something that came up when Sega when there was a lawsuit against Gearbox, Sega basically saying, oh, hey, you guys screwed up and we want our money back. But then Gearbox countered saying, hey, you're the ones who basically made all the decisions that led this to being a mess.
Yeah, well, I think in all honesty, Romney, maybe you'll agree with me on this, is that this is another perfect example of the downsides of crunch in the games industry. Mm-hmm. This is also just the downside of publishers as well as any kind of executive meddling getting involved, because it does screw up what the devs are trying to do, and that's how simple things like this can get overlooked.
Yep. As the proverb says, haste makes waste.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, Gearbox is Borderlands, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, so Gearbox, I mean, has a great reputation outside of Alien Colonial Marines. This is just kind of seen as their black sheep of the bunch, but people love the Borderlands games, so much so that there actually was outcry at E3 this year because Borderlands 3 was not there. But I actually think that this is a perfect example of this is what happens when crunch time is put into the games industry, why it's a bad thing, and how it can eventually turn out to be a bad thing for everybody involved. Don't breathe down the devs' necks. They'll get it done as soon as they can get it done. But I do agree with the executive meddling, at least in this case. Maybe if we curb down the budgets a little bit, we could actually let these people be creative and you don't have to break down their freaking necks. Alex, your thoughts on the Colonial Marines? How silly is this?
It's pretty silly, but I get the concept that the game was probably rushed to all hell. It is Sega, knowing them, so what do you expect? But at the same time, I mean, this is a pretty simple typo. You know, it's one thing for me, like a complete amateur. You know, I would make this mistake if I was, like, say, trying to, you know, on the fly program my own little game, like my own little, like, say, if I wanted to, you know, get the RenPry engine and make my own little visual novel, I'm sure I would make a dumb mistake like this because I'm an amateur. I don't do this for a living, but this is a very, very simple typo that you should have caught at some point in quality assurance or in just general coding and development. So regardless of your crunch time and whatever crap Sega was doing, this was a very simple mistake that should have been avoided. And I think just the lack of professionalism here.
I will at least come to their defense in this regard. This is a simple mistake that can happen. Like, I've done a little bit of programming in my life, not like complex by any stretch, but I've had this happen where, like, you have one minor thing misspelled, you use the wrong pronunciation or the wrong quotation mark or something like that, and your program won't run. You just don't know until you actually go through the code line by line, character by character, and find it. And unfortunately, it took a modder to do it. But yeah, it's stuff like this that can actually happen. And here's the thing, Alex, you're right. This should have been something that got caught in QA. And so at that point, yeah, you kind of have to fault both Gearbox as well as Sega because of the fact this was being pushed so far out the door. It's just sad that, like, this game could have technically been a lot better than what people thought it was. And it's this one misspelling, this one typographical error that held it back. That's all that it takes, guys. That's how ridiculous gaming and programming in general can be. Yeah. So final thoughts on this one before we move on, because there really isn't a whole lot to go over. It's silly, it's stupid, but it does happen. In fact, I think a lot of bugs in Elder Scrolls and Fallout have been attributed to this.
Yeah, honestly, looking at this pretty much proves kind of the story of the old fable of how the guy didn't put the nail in the horseshoe, and the king ended up falling from the horse, losing the battle, losing the kingdom, all for the want of a horseshoe nail. Except this time it was all for the want of quality assurance.
I'll wrap things up as simply as I actually reached out to a few of my friends as well as my brother who are programmers, and they all pretty much came back with this one thing. Quality assurance. It is your friend. A friend that you don't want to piss off. I think that sums it up, right?
Yeah.
So moving on.
One sec, my final thoughts. Constellation out of Colonial Marines, we did get Isolation, which while I've not played it myself, I have watched a Let's Play. It definitely looks like a much, much better game, truly capturing the spirit and the horror of Alien.
Is Gearbox responsible for Isolation too?
I don't think so. Let me take a quick look.
Go double check that, because I'd be very interested in that.
Yeah, I think that was a different studio that did that, because I know they had to do a lot of... with the advertising as well, they were doing a lot of damage control, saying, "Hey, we know Colonial Marines suck, but we swear this one's really good, guys. Give it a chance."
I know it was a
Isolation.
Company.
Let's see. It was published by Sega, but it was developed by Creative Assembly.
Creative Assembly, okay. Because I know that the DLC, the one that actually involved Ripley, was a different company, but I don't remember who that was either. But yeah, moving on into the next story that we have. This one is good, but also could be bad, considering the people that are actually involved. And that is, so apparently there was actually going to be, or at least fans, or at least a bunch of fan projects have risen, trying to recreate PT for the PC. So for people who actually don't know what PT is, which isn't a whole lot of people, PT was a demo that came out a few years ago that was a sneak peek into Silent Hills, which was a game that Hideo Kojima was helping to fund for Konami to do, but was being directed by Guillermo del Toro. All right. And funniest thing, the same main actor that is kind of the lead right now for, or I can't remember his actual name, but he's from The
Norman
Walking Dead.
Reedus.
Norman Reed.
Reedus.
Okay. Norman Reedus. He actually was the featured model in PT as well as Death Stranding. In fact, there's now a nice theory ring that's going around, and I kind of agree with it, that I think Death Stranding is pretty much that Silent Hill script. They've just kind of repurposed it. That's why Norman Reedus is such an integral part of it. But Konami caught wind of this, that the people were trying to recreate PT on PC, and shut it down, obviously. Because, it's evil Konami. Konami doesn't want people to have nice things. But they, in turn, did something fairly nice, as the creator, or at least the creator of this fan project, I believe his name is Kismar, after having that shut down, Konami then approached him and offered him an internship.
Yeah. Well, let's clarify a couple of details. Firstly, this was an approach from Konami Europe, not Konami Japan. So the part of Konami that is run by, decent human beings and with decent little things like labor laws and the fact that they can't have companies interfere with insurance.
I was going to say, and don't involve Japanese healthcare.
Yes, and so this was specifically someone over at Konami Europe, and they basically work with the Europe and Japan and American divisions of Konami. And I saw the Yongya video that broke it down into more detail, where Kimsar said that he got a phone call. Well, first he got a direct message from an higher up from Konami Europe, who basically said, "Hey, can you follow me so I can DM you?" And then he got a phone call basically explaining, "Hey, we really like what you did. Unfortunately, we're going to have to shut this down because one key thing about PT for PC is that he was using assets that was mined from the data of PT." Yes. So there
were actual legit legal issues that Konami had to act upon.
Yeah, so this was using assets that were still technically owned by Konami, but because this was Konami Europe, rather than becoming all draconian, they basically said, "Hey, we really like what you were doing." It got everyone here at Konami Europe excited. And again, take this story with a grain of salt, because this is still very much hearsay, no real confirmation.
Yes. And a lot of the testimony is based off of Kimsar, so, unfortunately, we don't have, the official documentation and all that.
And so basically they just said, "Hey, we really like what you did. We're going to hook you up with some merchandise and some games." And as Kimsar puts it, he basically said he was offered an internship at Konami Europe. So again, a part of the company that isn't run by what is effectively a mafia that isn't tied to the mafia, but let's face it, they may very well be tied to the mafia, all things considered.
They're running patches, so I have a hard time believing they aren't Yakuza tied at this point.
Yeah, literally, it's like something out of a noir crime drama. They're running pachinko parlors and fitness clubs. I
liked one joke that got made on YouTube a while back. I think it got taken down, but basically comparing Konami to the Kingpin, where they basically own all of Japan and everybody just works for them. And the leader of Konami is he's big, fat, and in a white suit and saying, "I will get you."
Yeah, I'd probably go with more the Lex Luthor approach, given...
he is more Lex, isn't he? Yeah.
Konami's a lot more Lex Luthor, because I'm sure they probably use those fitness clubs. It's not always a front. It probably is a... I think Alex is right on the money. Pachinko parlors and fitness clubs are common fronts for organized crime.
It's a crying shame that Yakuza doesn't get made by Konami, does it?
Oh, that's the thing.
It's really appropriate they should make it.
Well, here's the thing. Yakuza is made by Sega. If it was made by Konami, they probably would not make it because it would hit too close to home.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. The other thing, too, that also kind of lends some questionable properties to this article as to whether or not this actually happened is later statements that Kimsar does explain, which is that the Konami representative told him that the publisher is expressing desires to make games outside of the pachinko and mobile categories it's focused on in recent years. Okay. This is where I kind of sat there and went, yeah, this ain't legit. Because the bottom line is, yes, you're right, Romney. It is Konami Europe. But eventually decisions like this have to go through Konami Japan. And Konami Japan has already decided they want to do pachinko. They want to do mobile. They want to do the stuff that's stupidly cheap because they're getting profit off of it. So
yeah, but to be fair, they have announced collaboration or, at least interest in developing for Switch, and they have some Switch games, don't they?
Yeah, Super Bomberman R, that's Konami, and all the various tie-in DLC.
But wasn't it published by Konami?
Well, it's published, but they also, keep in mind, Konami owns the entire Hudson library, so they also developed Super Bomberman R, and that's also why Bomberman is an assist trophy in Smash Bros. Ultimate, because that was probably part of the deal to let Nintendo use Snake again.
Yeah, so at that point, but we know that Bomberman R was developed in-house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so at that point, all right, then you have at least that, but, I mean, it's not, okay, Bomberman R, one example. It's very unlikely, though, that we're going to see, especially like Metal Gear was the title that a lot of people thought was going to be the one that survives all of this. And then, well, Survive happened.
Yeah, Survive didn't.
It really didn't. And so at that point, a lot of people just kind of said, okay, well, if they couldn't make Survive work and Metal Gear is what they consider to be their flagship, the franchise that they think will carry them into games, it pretty much kind of killed any options for later stuff. Like, we already know that Castlevania is pretty much dead.
Well, the games are, but we are getting season 2 of the anime.
Yeah, we're getting season 2 of the anime, but it's not likely that Konami is going to outsource a team or have an internal team work on a new Castlevania game.
Well, unless it's a crappy game for iOS, like they tried to sneak on us most recently.
But I'm saying like legit console. Like you're not going to get a legit console one unless Bloodstained.
Yeah.
That's kind of the frustration here. And so that's where a lot of people are kind of questioning is like, did Kimsar actually talk to, I believe he talked to a Konami rep. I just don't, again, I think Romney's kind of hit the nail on the head. He's talking to Konami Europe or Konami America or, other divisions that have to answer to the mob boss. And unfortunately, as soon as that hits the desk of the mob boss, they're going to say, no, we'll just make a pachinko game.
Or alternately, it's probably just be a case of, oh, you want to bring on this unpaid intern? Whatever. We got pachinko balls to count.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, if he actually gets a job in doing gaming, I think it's just going to be like he'll make project after project after project, and maybe Konami will like a few of them, and then they'll be like, okay, you need to make this mobile. We're not doing this console.
Yeah, that's probably likely what it is that Konami Europe would probably deliver a pitch to Konami Japan. It's like, hey, we have this really cool idea. And they basically just like, okay, is there a way we can make it for mobile or pachinko somehow? Or does it tie to one of our fitness clubs?
And that might eventually get boring for somebody like Kimsar who actually wants to make, PC games and console games and stuff like that.
Yeah. But at the same time, though, the fact that it's in Europe and not Japan means that if he leaves the company, he's not going to get nearly as blackballed because, again,
this is true.
Europe and America have things that basically, if Konami tried pulling any of the crap they pull in Japan, in America, the United States, the Better Business Bureau would be on their ass.
They would be. I think they technically are on Konami and of America, but not to that extent.
Yeah, basically, it would basically be like in a Resident Evil game where you actually walk into the room with a swarm of crows and you don't have enough healing items and you're already near death and they just peck you to death.
Yep, pretty much. Or to give kind of a reference to Alex as he gives his opinion, it would be roughly the same thing as walking down a hall and then all of a sudden, oh yeah, Mr. Kool-Aid X actually punches through the wall and says, hi. So Alex, your thoughts on the Kimsar Konami situation?
Yeah, well, I kind of hope he does get the internship with Konami Europe. Hopefully he goes with the European branch and doesn't have to go face the scary Japanese branch. And, at least it may not amount to much in the short term, but it's at least a good resume booster. So when he wants to finally break into the industry as a whole, well, now he's got at least, hey, I worked at Konami.
And here's the other thing to look at in that regard is like, he's worked with Konami. He's tried to bounce some projects here and there. We have a lot of really cool rising teams that are coming out of Europe right now. And so at that point, all he has to do is just build his resume for a few years with Konami. Yeah, sure, they're going to toss away your projects or they're going to say, make it mobile or we don't care. But then you have like a couple of years of experience to hone your craft. Then go and find Mercury Steam, because I know Mercury Steam, for some weird reason, still maintains a good relationship with Konami. you could go to Mercury's team, and Mercury's team will be like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll look at your work. Or you could go to Ninja Theory, and they say, okay, we'll look at your work. Or heaven forbid, some of these indie teams that are now getting funded by EA, they'll look at your stuff, and then at that point, you've got what you want. You can be a console or a console game dev. You'd be a little bit more indie, but you would at least be getting funding from somewhere, kind of thing. So that might actually be for the overall better, is just work at Konami, build your resume, and then go out to those other teams and showcase what you can do. So final thoughts on this one before we move into the entertainment portion of the evening. I think we pretty much hit this, is that it's great and all that Konami reached out, but again, you have to consider it's Konami Europe.
And also the thing to consider is that this is only hearsay. There's no real official confirmation. We have to take it at the word of Kimsar, and we don't know whether or not this is true or not. And there's probably a case where he can't even really confirm if it's real or not. Probably for the same reason where Konami Europe doesn't want to have their head bitten off by the ogre that is Konami Japan.
A friend of mine just barely sent me this just in. Konami has acquired the Overlord franchise. Are you sure that's not the Overlord title? Because it could go either way, my friends. It really could go over either way. All right, moving on into the top story that we have for the entertainment portion of the evening. And unfortunately, people might have noticed at the pre-show, Alex gave me a little bit of crap for this, and duly so. But originally, my intention was to cover this as quickly as we could on last week's pre-show. We ran out of time. And now we've had even more people go, I want to know what people think on this one, especially me and Romney. And I honestly had not seen this trailer until today. But it is confirmed. I'd seen the speculation from people that Akira Toriyama has decided to take on Broly. So we knew that a new Dragon Ball movie was coming out. We didn't know if it was going to be based on Super, because it still was saying Dragon Ball in the early trailers. And it did showcase Goku with his trademark staff, but it didn't show him going Super Saiyan. It didn't show anything of that sort until we got later trailers that revealed that this is now Akira Toriyama's interpretation of Broly, the legendary Super Saiyan. So with that, and we've also confirmed that this is going to be in the Super timeline, as there are appearances of Whis and Beerus, as well as seeing both Vegeta and Goku going Super Saiyan Blue. So we know that we're going to actually get Broly up against current power level standards.
As well as Golden Frieza, who also appears in the trailer.
Yeah, that was the other feature of the trailer, is that it was going to be Broly versus Frieza. So that was actually an interesting take because of the hatred that Frieza has for Saiyans, and now she has to deal with Broly. So I'm just going to go ahead and open this up to Romney first. Have you seen the trailer? It sounds to me like you have.
I did, and that was what I shared to our little news group where we compile all of our stories. And honestly, I'm not sure how to feel. I mean, on the one hand, I can kind of see why, but on the other, it's kind of a case of, like, I can see it's very much, I'm of two minds. On the one hand, it's like, okay, it's kind of cool seeing this character that's technically not been canon and seeing, okay, well, let's see how he would fit in this universe. But at the same time, though, I just look at this and I'm just like, this reeks of desperate fan service on part of Toei. Whereas a case of, hey, let's take something that's vaguely recognizable and try to use that to nickel and dime the fan base once again.
From what I understand, and I haven't been able to confirm this, apparently there were statements by Toriyama that confirmed this, and I've never been able to find them, aside from the occasional YouTuber that quotes them. Apparently Toriyama wanted this. Toriyama actually wanted to work on Broly because he didn't work on the original Broly, and he actually looked at that and said there's actually a lot of really great ideas there, hence why he also kind of set things up for people to be considering Broly again in the Tournament of Power arc when he created the character Kale. So at that point, like a lot of, and I think they've even, again, confirmed it, I haven't found this, where he did put in Kale as kind of a subtle hint to get people thinking about Broly again. And that's what leads into this Broly movie.
Well, yeah, and again, a lot of people tend to forget it's not just Toriyama on his own anymore. He's working with Toyotaro, which is what's led to certain directions of the series, because a lot of people forget Toyotaro was brought in to work on Super because of his Dojin series Dragon Ball AF. And so
Yes.
it's a case where, on the one hand, it sounds promising, and I'm definitely curious to see how they work it in. I'm just one of those people that hasn't really followed Super because, again, power creep has basically killed any investment I have in Dragon Ball. But the other thing that worries me, and this is only seen in some of the snippets, the animation leaves a bit to be desired. There are clearly moments where they're using the 3D models, and at this point, I'm just like, okay, if you're using the 3D models, just do it all in the 3D cel-shaded 3D CG.
Was it just me, or did a couple of those like fast punches and things like that look like they were? I hate to go this example because I know how difficult it is for Japanese animators, but was it just me, or were there a couple of shots in that trailer that looked like it could have been Dragon Ball Super Episode 3, and the fist doesn't even look like a fist, and things are too heavily drawn, and
and the reliance on the CG, on the 3D models, which honestly at this point, given the direction they're using, I'm just surprised they don't just animate all of Super in that style and save themselves the headache. Because honestly, if you can make it look good for Dragon Ball Fighters and for Dragon Ball video games, just cut out the middlemen and just basically do I'd be curious to see a Dragon Ball animated series in that 3D cel-shaded style. Because
you mean the Resurrection F, where you had like the 3D models doing some of the fighting?
Yeah, because that's what I noticed in some of the shots, and you can even tell in some of the screenshots for the thumbnail for where it's the shot of Goku and Broly and they're kind of about to punch each other. You can tell, they're using the 3D models for this shot. Yeah. It's not drawn. And that's what worries me because of the direction the anime industry has gone. I'm just like, why don't they just do the whole show like this and save themselves time and money? I mean, they wouldn't have to pay the animators nearly as much. You would just have to pay them to pose it instead of trying to have it best of both ways. And that's what also worries me, is that some parts of the animation don't look so good.
No, they don't. And okay, so my viewpoint on the matter is, actually, I should probably ask this question too of Romney, and eventually we're going to get to Alex, because Alex has some opinions other than I hate Dragon Ball. I'm pretty sure that he's going to have something on this matter. Did you see the original? Like any of the Broly trilogy that came out?
I've seen the entirety of the Broly trilogy, and first one I liked, second one was okay. Bio Broly is probably the worst Dragon Ball movie I've ever seen.
See, I kind of have an opposing view in that regard. I wasn't entirely bought on the original Broly, just because as a villain he's kind of lame. I've gone into this numerous times. Like the only reason that he's a villain to Kakarot is because Kakarot, aka Goku, cried.
Like again, it's not like
I was one of those people that was rolling around laughing when Dragon Ball Abridged, when they did the abridged Broly movie. I was laughing because yes, it is a stupid plot element.
Yeah, again, it's not like the original film is high art, but it's enjoyable. It's entertaining Dragon Ball Z action.
It's everything that you want out of a Dragon Ball movie. Like you want those action moments.
Yeah, it's just Bio Broly takes it the step further and makes it schlock that's not fun to watch, and literally presents the premise of a much better movie at the end of the film, where it's like, Broly's rampaging through this galaxy after being killed. I'm just like, why is that not the movie? Why are we literally watching Goten and Trunks on an island fighting something that's only vaguely connected to Broly? Why is this the story?
And actually, that's my complaints with the other two movies, is that there's such an emphasis on Goten and Trunks, specifically in Bio Broly, where, they're basically the heroes. I don't care what anybody says. Like, hype up Android 18 and Hercule all you want in Bio Broly, and I've never even seen Bio Broly, and I know that. That's not enough to save it. Goten and Trunks is not what people care about. Broly's Second Coming at least has Gohan kind of stepping up and being, I'm Super Saiyan 2. Can I stand up to him? And realizing, no, you really kind of can't still. I like that concept, but then the rest of the movie is my issue. And so I will say, like, I am interested in a Toriyama written Broly to see if we can fix those problems. I wish I could say I had a lot more faith here, but I just don't. Broly is such a stupid idea.
Yeah, and I mean, I can see the idea kind of working. It's just, again, given the level of power creep we've already seen, I guess at least makes sense to make Broly canon now instead of trying to work him in earlier into the timeline, because that would just
now we can't even call him the legendary Super Saiyan anymore, because I don't know if you knew this from Super. We actually have a title for that form now, which is Berserker Saiyan.
Of course they have a title.
So you can't even do that. But frankly, that already had a bigger problem because I was actually laughing at how many ways the legend of the Super Saiyan got rewritten over the years. Either it was Broly, it was Goku, or it was freaking Bardock.
Yeah, honestly,
like, can we pick one, please?
Yeah, honestly, one thing that does have my attention that I am excited to see is that they do show snippets of Goku going Super Saiyan God. So not the blue hair, but the red hair, thinking, okay, clearly Broly is enough of a threat that the Saiyans have to pool their energy again. That at least makes Broly seem like a credible threat. Plus, it gives us a chance to see, okay, does the power boost they initially got by going Super Saiyan Blue, does that stack into Super Saiyan God? How does that change things as opposed to Battle of Gods?
I would need to send you a video because technically Blue is still considered to be more powerful than God, because when they get into the Tournament of Power arc, they actually do say that it's a step down when Goku and Vegeta do take the forms. So at that point, it's like, okay, so Blue is the next step, and then eventually, as people already know by now, Ultra Instinct is the next level of power.
And in an instant, you immediately killed the one interesting premise in less than a second.
I'm sorry. I'm like it's one of those things where I would actually probably tell you, you know, if that's what you liked about Battle of Gods, maybe avoid the manga and maybe avoid Tournament of Power, because they basically kind of say like that it's technically lower than Blue.
Yeah, see, this is why I dropped Dragon Ball Super and watched My Hero Academia instead, because at least My Hero Academia hasn't hit the level of power creep yet.
Yeah. So. And here's the other thing too, is that, okay, so since I've seen Tournament of Power, my thoughts on Kale are roughly that I thought it was cool to be able to bring that aspect, that power level into play again, especially with a nervous character like Broly was in the movie. But I actually will also be one of the few to say that it was kind of wasted overall, because the biggest hype that happened with that character is when she fused and became a whole new character that could actually, not in kind of a werewolf fashion, but willingly utilize Super Saiyan Berserker along with everything else that she could do. Okay. So that kind of hurt that power level. And I literally look at this movie, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Romney, I have a feeling the reason that this is, they're going the way that they are is because they want to have Ultra Instinct beat the Berserker Saiyan. Because in that earlier part of the trailer, they do reference the fact that now that he knows about that new threshold of power, he wants to reach it again.
Yeah, I mean, I may get sacrilege for saying this, but Dragon Ball really should have ended a long time ago. I mean, either end it, or for the God's sake, give someone else the protagonist mantle, because Goku has nowhere else to go. I mean,
well, and the problem is that he's like, I don't know if you've seen a lot of the discussion, man, but he's the reason the Tournament of Power happened. In fact, a lot of problems in Super could have been avoided if Goku simply wasn't involved.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I get that people like it, and I get it has its appeal. It's just we've taken something that seemed mildly interesting, and now, I mean, as we're discussing this, I'm just finding fewer and fewer reasons to care.
It really is kind of getting difficult. I will admit, if I see later trailers and they look better, I probably will see this Broly movie. But Broly already as a character isn't all that entertaining to me. To be honest with you guys, like, my favorite two movies of Dragon Ball are, and this ought to tell you enough like why I don't like Broly. I like The World's Strongest, and then I also like Android 13. And the only reason I like Android 13 is because it's hilarious as crap. Okay? So I love the funny aspect of it, and then World's Strongest is more of that serious element that works better. Okay? So I will probably go and see Broly if I see better trailers than this, but this initial trailer has not sold me. And I frankly don't want to see Ultra Instinct versus Berserker Saiyan. I think that would be a dumb thing to do. And I like Ultra Instinct personally. I like the threshold. I like what he had to do to get there. But I just don't want to, at that point, to me, Berserker Saiyan and Ultra Instinct looks like, and I just don't want to see Broly get smashed away like that. Alex, I know that you're not a Dragon Ball fan. I know that you've heard a lot of this discussion, but you have to have at least heard about Broly and the awesome voice rendition that happened from Vic Mignogna of One Word.
No, because I really don't care. I just don't care.
You haven't actually looked up Vic Mignogna doing Broly?
No. Because why would I? Because I don't care about Dragon Ball.
It's hilarious, man. He hates doing it. And people ask him to do it all the time. So that's pretty much your take on this, is like, the fact that the actual creator is taking this on, this doesn't, I'm not saying go out and watch it. Is it interesting that the original creator is actually wanting to take this on?
He wrote Battle of the Gods, didn't he? So it doesn't really surprise me. He's written a few Dragon Ball scripts over the last few years. So
yeah, most of the movies though, I think he's avoided. So like those got written by Toei and not Funimation, but Toei and
basically the movies that came out during the run of Dragon Ball Z, the anime, were worked on by Toei in-house. Same case with the Dragon Ball movies. Basically, the ones that were released with the production of the anime itself were worked on by other people and other producers and were thus deemed non-canon. Yeah,
I think maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Romney. I think the few examples of like Toriyama working on them, I think Bardock was one of them.
Sort of. It was more a case where it's initially started out as a comic that a assistant came up with, and then he came up with some designs, and then they basically created the special based on some initial designs. But that's pretty much where his involvement ends. And with Legend of Bardock, where they try to say, oh, he's the legendary Super Saiyan, Toriyama just basically said, hey, I like this alternate idea. Let's make it a thing.
Yes. Except I hate it, because then I'm just like, who is the legendary Super Saiyan? Pick one. Was it Goku? Was it Bardock? Was it Broly? Which one was it?
Yeah, and then there's even rumors of yet another legendary Super Saiyan that they're going to be exploring in an OVA, which, again, I'm with you. Pick one. I mean, and I get the whole appeal of Dragon Ball is like, hey, yeah, we play fast and loose, but that's part of the reason why the power creep is so ridiculous and why it's hard to really get invested anymore.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like, I like Super, but only in one particular aspect. I like what it's done with Vegeta as a character. It kind of continued his arc from the Buu saga and made him go from, being that villain that occasionally does villainous things to actually being, well, a guy that cares, like actually being a family man, being a caring dad, being a caring husband.
If only he was actually the focus of the damn show.
Which is what Super should have been. All right. Like, I agree with you. The fact that they set up Gohan and then they did nothing with him and Buu, that was absolutely stupid. But then with Super, it's very clearly written that Vegeta should be one of the main focuses of the series, and we still have to go to Goku doing stupid shit.
Yeah.
So the fact that even the creator is going to take on a project he didn't take on before, that's not even remotely interesting to you at all, Alex?
Nope.
I'm going to have you sit down and watch the DBZ abridged Broly just so you can laugh at the plot.
Well, yeah. Honestly, DBZ abridged is probably the way to process a lot of the really bad movies. Even the ones that Team 4-Star themselves hate, like Cooler's Revenge.
Dude, I agree completely. World's Strongest for them was hilarious. I love Android 13. Like, Android 13 was already enjoyable in its own right to me. The bridge, you took it that next step.
Oh yeah, but like when you look at the behind the scenes video for Cooler's Revenge, where literally where literally Kaiser Neko stops every so often and basically goes, F this movie, F this movie, F this movie.
Yes. Oh no, he actually it's not in a making of, I don't think, but if you listen to one of the DB Sembers that was happening while he was editing Broly, he actually goes off on Broly. All right, like he actually has a little bit of a meltdown with Broly. They have to cut him off. And I found out later on like one of their live streams, like that actual rant was like 5 minutes long on the audio. Like, yeah, I can get that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we probably better move on to the next story because Alex is like,
yeah, we should probably move on before they decide to turn this discussion into a franchise in and of itself that constantly gets added on to and never ever stops.
But at that point, final thoughts for me and Romney. Are we going to go see Broly? For the moment, no.
Yeah, maybe. I'll wait until we know a little bit more about the story, a little bit, and see some more trailers. But it's kind of a case, I may see it in a limited theatrical release, but I don't see myself actively going out and buying the Blu-ray.
Let me put it this way. If the trailers convince me enough that I actually want to go see this, I'd probably pay for Romney to go with me so that him and me could just do a riff session on Broly. Because that's like one of those things I really wish we could have done a lot more of when we saw Resurrection F together with Aldo. Because that would have been awesome to be able to put that into like a group review format. Okay, so moving on into the next story that we have tonight. This is yet another San Diego Comic-Con announcement along with Broly, along with the Uncharted fan film. We got some interesting Star Wars news as the Clone Wars are returning. Now, before people jump down my throat and say, oh my gosh, this is so amazing, let's clarify a few details. One, this is one final season. A lot of people reached out to me and said, holy crap, the series is coming back. No, it's just one more season. It's one final season to tie up loose ends. It's not even that long either. It's 12 episodes long. Okay. So the 7th and final season of Clone Wars is going to be happening. It's only 12 episodes long, and it's basically going to wrap up all of the storylines that were left untouched from season 5 and the Netflix season 6 that did happen with Clone Wars, and wrap up those storylines and kind of lead into Rebels. Okay, so they're going to do that. That is set to debut in 2019. Yes, we can confirm Dave Filoni is working on it. So you know that you're getting the original creators, and I believe they've been able to bring back a majority of the voice cast, but some have decided not to come back. So you will have those as well. And the other thing that people need to consider, because a lot of people got misinterpreted this. Oh my gosh, it's coming back to Cartoon Network because Cartoon Network was no, nope. Back up 10 steps. It's going to the Disney streaming service because Disney owns it. Yes. Did Clone Wars show up on Cartoon Network? Yes. Since that point, Lucasfilm has been acquired by Disney. And therefore, that's where it's going. So a lot of people were very excited going, oh my gosh, I can see this on Cartoon Network. No, back up. You can't see it again on Cartoon Network. It will only be on this streaming service. And they haven't even confirmed whether or not it would get some kind of a DVD release, because even the Netflix episodes got some kind of a DVD release.
Yeah, but that was after a long period of time.
So I think we don't even have that confirmation.
Yeah, I think they literally only just barely have been released on DVD. The final Netflix season has only just barely come out on DVD.
No, it's been out for at least a year. But you're right though. It took forever to get those things out. And a lot of people were actually worried because Netflix kind of hinted that maybe Clone Wars would go away, and that would also mean the Netflix episodes on the streaming service. Thankfully, they never capitalized on that, so people could still watch those episodes, but they also do have the DVD release. But that took forever to do, and it's not guaranteed here.
Yeah, because contracts are a thing. And especially with this exclusive, if it's going to get any TV airing, most you could hope for is after a number of years, and after they've had it on DVD for a number of years, you may see it on Disney XD if you're lucky. But even then, yeah, that's a very big if, and that's even arguing if the Star Wars franchise will even still be relevant at that point.
Yeah, and I guess a few images that we should actually discuss. I don't have them off of this article, but we actually do kind of see the transition into Episode 3. Anakin looks more like his Episode 3 model does. Same thing with Obi-Wan. We do get an older Ahsoka Tano, so we know that this is going to be just before the events of Episode 3. So you guys can check that part out. And I think even a few of these episodes are set after the events of Episode 3 to tie into Rebels, specifically to show what the heck happened to Ahsoka before she showed up on Rebels. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much what they're trying to do here. I mean, okay, so first I'm going to open it up to the panel. What do you guys think about yet another season of Clone Wars getting confirmed? Not series, just one more 12-episode season being done.
Honestly, I never really followed the show because I never had cable, and I don't really have the patience because, honestly, the Clone Wars is not a part of the Star Wars canon that I've ever been particularly interested in, given, and I'm sure people have pointed this out, and Red Letter Media pointed it out in both Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, where the premise and the build-up to it it doesn't have my attention. It's basically a house built on a foundation that is already very shaky, that's only become somewhat stable, but not really. So honestly, like, if you're a fan, I'm happy for you. I'm not going to really try to watch it because I'm not interested.
I'm there with a lot of people where if you want to consider it this way, like one of the best things that's actually come out of the prequels is the Clone Wars series and the fact of what they were actually trying to do with it. I agree with that premise, but at the same time, it didn't cater to everybody. It catered, like in some cases, some of those episodes catered to the hardcore of the hardcore as far as Star Wars fans are concerned. So I'm glad and all that you're going to be getting episodes that kind of tie everything together. But I mean, the other thing that you have to look at with this is that this is going to be yet another hype machine, along with the Rebels series that we know is coming soon. Not Rebels as in episode 4, but there actually is going to be, I think it's called Resistance, where we're going to get a Clone Wars type series based in the episode 7 era. Okay. So that's happening too. And so there's probably going to be tie into that. And I mean, I'll watch it. I'll watch it just to see if it ties the loose ends together better. I know that one of those loose ends is Boba Fett. So that probably is going to have some kind of tie in to the movie that they want to do. But yeah, I don't know. I'm 50-50 on this because again, it's tied behind that damn streaming service. And if it was going to be guaranteed to DVD, then I would at least be somewhat interested. But I mean, I've already found other places to get little Einsteins, guys. So I don't know if I need the Disney streaming service.
Well, again, give it time. As soon as that thing launches, they're probably going to shift it over.
Well, yeah, and the other one that people have asked our opinions about is the DC one, and I have no intention of picking that up.
Yeah, because, I mean, what's really there? I mean, the only way I could possibly see myself getting the DC one is if they decide to bring back Lucifer. But that would be a very big if, because I don't think even DC wanted to acknowledge the fact that Lucifer was doing as well as it did, well, except for the last season.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where I'm actually looking to not be tied to so many streaming services, and I look for stuff. So specifically, like, I still haven't seen Star Trek Discovery. I don't want to get CBS All Access again and have to deal with their player again to go and watch it. And that's why I'm waiting for like some kind of a DVD release, which I hear is coming down the pike very soon. It's one of those things that I'm very happy about certain organizations like Netflix acknowledging that some people just don't want to pay for the continual monthly service and do put out Daredevil for physical media. But then you also have situations where, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Romney, because you probably know a little bit better than me. Cobra Kai, when it originally was announced for YouTube Red, they weren't going to do any kind of media like that. It was going to stay strictly on YouTube. And I've heard since then that because of the popularity of Cobra Kai, they are considering putting it to DVD.
Well, yeah, they're probably going to do what Netflix themselves have been doing, where after a period of time, they eventually put the series on DVD. Because I know most recently they released the first 2 seasons of Voltron Legendary Defender on DVD. Yes. And so it's a case where it'll be a simple matter of, okay, we're going to give it enough time so that way we can milk as much money as we can on the streaming service. My theory is that they'll probably wait until the release of season 2 to then put season 1 on DVD, because AMC does the same thing with The Walking Dead and Into the Badlands.
And I've already received confirmation that Castlevania is also going to be getting this treatment from Netflix, where they originally weren't going to, because they didn't think that Castlevania was going to be that successful. So it's kind of my hope that, like, if Clone Wars does come out and it is popular on that streaming service, that they will consider doing this for people like me who don't want to pay for yet another streaming service just to see one series kind of thing.
Yeah, that's kind of the way our market is going, though, considering when you look at the anime streaming services and how they're trying to compete with one another, thankfully Crunchyroll and Funimation have a good, friendly relationship. Yeah. But then when you look at the kind of stuff High Dive is trying to put out, like how they started syndicating Legend of the Galactic Heroes, which is already a very niche series, and hoping that niche appeal would get people to subscribe to their service. That's just the name of the market. It's basically what TV networks used to do, where they would try to snag that show that had a diehard following. I mean, imagine if Star Trek had never existed. Imagine that you had something like Star Trek become super popular with its 3 seasons in this day and age. It wouldn't be fighting for syndication on television. You'd have streaming services trying to who can get this really hot 3-season show. That it's very much the game is the same. It's just we've changed platforms now.
Yeah, I've kind of noticed that, especially with a lot of the more the perfect example I can think of is like they're not necessarily there anymore, but like when USA was making really good series, and people were following them, they weren't getting syndication on USA. Instead, they were getting their seasons moved over to the streaming services to get exposure there. So series like Burn Notice and Royal Pains and stuff like that were moving over to the streaming services instead of getting syndication on other networks that USA also happened to own, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you weren't seeing reruns of Burn Notice in those areas.
Well, unless they got like over the 100 plus episodes, which is usually how syndication works. They wait until you crack 100 and then you start selling the syndication rights.
Well, I think all of them, at least for a good couple of years, did go over 100 episodes. I think Monk is also tied to that too.
Yeah.
So at that point, like you did have these, but instead of going towards getting syndication on regular TV, they were going to the streaming services and putting them up there.
Yeah, because there was money to be had. Yeah. I mean, especially, you'd be surprised how many, the lengths people will go to not have to see advertisements. I mean, that's kind of what made, that's kind of how Netflix was able to win where Hulu failed. Because Hulu tried being we're free, but you have to watch ads, which is like real television. Yeah. But people kept going to Netflix because Netflix allowed you to watch all the shows you want, and you didn't have to sit through annoying commercials that would break the player.
Yeah, what's funny is like a majority of people, including me, that I know of that own Hulu, they only own it because somebody else gave it to them. You know, like, so I get mine through my PlayStation Plus subscription. So it's just like, oh, okay, well, I just so happen to own this. I guess I'll use it. But yeah, that's most of the people that actually own Hulu. Like that's a running pattern with them. Alex, what is your take on the Clone Wars situation? Do you think it's a good idea for them to do a brand spanking new season? Do you also, if you want to get into the whole locking it behind their streaming service, I don't know if we've actually brought this up too much with you on the podcast, but go ahead and give your thoughts on that one too.
Well, I'm in the same camp as Romney. I've never been a big fan of the Clone Wars TV series. I have grown to kind of like the original like mini series where the short episodes, but once they kind of went to the all CGI format, it's the same reason I never watched Rebels. I never liked Disney's, cheap TV CG animation. I just thought it looked ugly. So, and as far as, the Clone Wars goes, the fact that they are putting it behind the Disney streaming paywall, I think it's just going to kill any interest that might be left in the Clone Wars series, because unless the old fans are really that desperate for one more Clone Wars season that they want to pay out for it, even then, that's probably about all they're going to get. Even if they do, I don't see it really lasting long. They might just pay for the season and then cancel once it's over.
See, and funniest thing is like, I kind of disagree with what you're saying, but only because of the people that I've talked to about it recently. They are more interested in paying for, because that Resistance series is also going to be put behind that wall. And they've already said, like, I will pay for Clone Wars, kind of in agreement with you. I'll pay for Clone Wars, but the second I'm done with Clone Wars, I'm not paying anymore. Because I'm not interested in Resistance. I'm not interested in any of the other stuff that you have going for it. But I do find it interesting because you're not the only one. A lot of people love those Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars 15-minute shorts that happened, and kind of wish that they followed more into Star Wars canon instead of just being kind of a one-time experiment. Even though technically they were at one point. I mean, there are episodes that actually kind of lead into episode 3 in that. But yeah, I can kind of see that point of view. The bottom line is that the biggest problem here is it's tied behind that damn streaming service. And that's gonna hurt them in the long run. I don't know how much until we actually get there, but I have a feeling a lot of old school Clone Wars fans are going to come back, and that's going to be a pretty big number because a lot of them were there at the announcement at SDCC, and we're very excited. So I'll be very interested to see what they come out with later. What they've already shown is intriguing, but not necessarily to a point where I'm going to go out and purchase a membership to this Disney service. I'm not there yet. But final thoughts before we move into the last discussion topic of the night. I hope it's worth it because I mean I love Dave Filoni, but eventually he's got to step outside Star Wars, guys.
Yeah.
Eventually he's got to do that.
And plus, I'm of the opinion that we're kind of getting a little too oversaturated with Star Wars in general. It's being stretched a little too thin.
Because we still have that live action series at some point that's going to come out, and we don't know anything on that.
If it ever is going to come out, because that's been in development back before George Lucas sold the franchise. So,
yep. And I've even heard talk that the Disney streaming service, for those who don't actually know this, there was actually a comedic series that was written way back when. They actually are considering bringing those episodes to the Disney streaming service.
Not sure why, because they aren't that good. I mean, I've seen clips. The jokes, they just fall flat. I mean, you can tell they're trying because it's literally Lucasfilm partnering with the people behind Robot Chicken.
Yeah.
The jokes just aren't that good. It's not that funny.
Well, it's hokey. And so at that point, I would be interested in watching the episodes just to see if they got a little bit funnier. But yeah, I kind of had that problem with the clips that we've seen, is that it has potential, but not a whole lot of. So, all right, moving on into the final story of the evening that we have. And this one is another listener request. It actually kind of hit both me and Alex earlier this week. So you're going to have some Draken Shadow episodes talking about it too. But it looks like Rugrats is going to be getting a brand spanking new revival, as Nickelodeon and Paramount Pictures have announced that they will be bringing back Rugrats with a 26 episode order and a live action film featuring CG characters.
What?
So,
what?
Exactly.
I think we need the Sonic reaction, Romney.
No. I'm not gonna muster up the fake seizure. My faith in Hollywood is already so low. I mean, that would take more effort than Hollywood itself exerts, and I'm not gonna waste that energy.
Yeah. So, we know that the 26 episode order has happened, and I've seen mixed testimony as to what it is. I've seen a lot of people saying it's a reimagining of like the first couple of seasons where they go over kind of similar topics that those episodes go over, but it's still the same characters. I've also seen that they basically create brand new characters and it's a brand new Rugrats series. And I've also seen the whole concept of resuming the series where it left off all the way back in 2002. I think is when they ended. It was like 2002. What was that?
I think that's right. I think
2002. I think it's 2002 or 2004. One of the
2004.
Two. 2004.
Oh, okay.
So at that point, like this would basically kick off after that, and they'd be dealing with new stuff, new problems. I don't know what to think on this one. We'll get to the film in a second, but why would you want to continue? That's like the one that I have the most problem with. Why would you want to continue on when so many potential audience members out there as kids have never seen like the first couple of seasons of Rugrats?
Well, that's probably precisely what they're hoping on, is a vague notion of relevance, knowing, oh, this was a thing that existed.
So why not just go back and recreate some of those stories in modern animation?
Yeah, that's probably what they might do, but I worry we may get a kind of what we got with the new Magic School Bus, where they may make a bunch of arbitrary changes in a painful attempt to seem relevant and then end up crashing and burning.
See, what I'm actually kind of worried about is that they're going to re-aim Rugrats to... One of the things that was kind of cool about Rugrats back in the day was that it was kind of edgy. I'm not saying extremely edgy, but it actually tried to deal with some hefty matters that even kids that were watching it didn't entirely understand. And that was part of the allure of it, is that they didn't understand it either.
Well,
so
and partially it's a case of, hey, they made jokes for both the adults and the kids watching.
Yeah, so at that point, some of these ideas, and another one that I actually didn't bring up, was that this would basically be relegated off to Nick Jr. and therefore be much more of a kiddie product than what it was before. So much so that one of the theories out there is that they would repurpose Angelica as not a point of conflict, but she would also just be, it'd be like Blue's Clues. She's just another part of the fun kind of thing. And I think that's already a bad idea, because
I really doubt that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's Nickelodeon. If they're, I mean, Nickelodeon has already, like, you know, they've drudged up Rocko's Modern Life and Hey Arnold.
Yeah, that was the thing that was kind of surprising in this article. We have an Invader Zim movie I didn't know about, a Blue's Clues revival, a Rocko's Modern Life movie. Holy crap.
Yeah, and we had Hey Arnold, as I mentioned, and that stuck pretty much right back to the old Hey Arnold. They didn't like completely revamp it to be like a Nick Jr. cartoon or anything. I can't see why they would do that with the Rugrats.
I think the only reason that theory exists is because babies.
That's probably it, is that it's because babies. But looking at this, because here's the big distinction between with what Nickelodeon's been doing as opposed to what, say, Cartoon Network has been doing, where Nickelodeon's at least trying to bring back these shows, but still keeping some semblance of what made these shows popular. I mean, when they decided to do the Jungle movie, that may be kind of the outlier where it wasn't so much, oh, it's a relaunch. It's more like, oh, no, we're just giving the creator the chance to do the ending he wanted to do the first time, but we didn't let him because we decided to make a two-parter into a feature film for no good reason.
You're talking Hey Arnold, right?
Yeah.
Because the first thing that came to my mind was isn't there technically a Jungle movie for the Rugrats too, where they crossed over with the Wild Thornberries?
Yes.
Yeah. And it has Bruce Willis giving probably one of the most awkward press junket interviews that we have ever seen in the history of press junket interviews.
Wonderful.
But yeah,
that's why I never saw it.
Yeah, but looking at this though, Nickelodeon at the very least understands okay, let's not alienate the fan base of these shows, because we saw that creates a lot of bad publicity when we do that. I mean, case in point, Teen Titans Go and Thundercats Roar. But most likely what we'll probably see is, like you said, they may just take a look at some of the scenarios from the earlier episodes, rework them in a modern setting. Honestly, like for the 26 episode order, I can see them trying to do that, trying to kind of still keep what made the show popular, but trying to work in, well, some of the new parenting perils that have emerged in the 21st century. So,
yep. So there's the series. Let's talk the movie. So already, first bad idea, live action involving CG characters.
Hold on. Can we back up for a second, because I haven't really given any thoughts on the series revival.
Cool, go ahead.
Okay, well, part of me does want to embrace it and say wholeheartedly, yeah, come back. But at the same time, Rugrats did kind of lose a lot of its stride after like after its cancellation and revival way back when. And so I'm just not sure, even though they do have Paul Germain back, who was one of the original key creators, along with Klasky and Sipo, I'm just not sure that they'll ever really recapture the same stride. Even though I was a kid, so I really did like the Rugrats way back then, even post cancellation and revival, even where most people say. And also unpopular opinion, I liked All Grown Up, but that's a whole nother discussion here. Yes, so in terms of that, also the fact we've lost already 2 of the original voice cast. We lost the voice of Chucky and we lost the voice of Stu. It's going to be weird to not have at least some. Oh, and we lost Tommy, of course. It'll be weird to have those gaps now where we're going to have to hear some recasting. I mean, with Hey Arnold, that's kind of inevitable because they always used child actors way back then. So of course they had to recast, but now we're talking about like long-standing staple characters. Now they're going to completely sound different. So
I mean, unless
it's not going to be bad. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, unless they decide to do what Disney did with DuckTales, where rather it's like, okay, let's not try to bring back the old one. Let's just go headfirst into doing this as a solid reboot and make that clean break. Which honestly,
that's a good example in my opinion.
Well, yeah, because with DuckTales, it worked out well because, well, we had lost the original voice of Uncle Scrooge, and so they figured, okay, well, rather than trying to bring back all the old voices and make this like the old show, let's just steer headfirst into making this new and different. And that could also be a direction they could take the show. It's too early to say. We only know that they've announced the intention, but we've not seen any concept art or any trailers as of yet.
That's why in a lot of cases, I like the idea of just doing a reinterpretation of like the first couple of seasons, like acting basically like Rugrats didn't happen and trying to retake those episodes that people love so much and doing them in modern style, but having their own take, kind of like what you were saying, Romney, with DuckTales, is having their own unique take, having a different kind of Tommy, a different kind of Chucky, to have them kind of figure things out. I'm not saying that you have to change the characters that much to be able to make it work, but you could make it work. It just, if you do the same Tommy, people are going to want the same Tommy's voice. That's not possible anymore. So at that point, you kind of have to go into that reinterpretation to be able to tell the story properly. And that's where I think that's probably the best idea that could probably work in this case, is if you just act as if the series didn't happen and take on some of the plots that you thought were the best and do those in the 26 episodes kind of thing. Moving back into the film. So you guys' thoughts on the film. I've said I don't like the idea of live action with CG. I don't like this idea with Sonic either. I'm very worried about both of these because immediately the thought that comes to my mind is like Alvin and the Chipmunks and Smurfs. And I'm going to be honest here, I'm not a fan of either of those movies.
Okay.
It just didn't work.
I think for Sonic the Hedgehog or Alvin and the Chipmunks even, or Smurfs, as stupid as they are, at least there's a bit more justification, especially with Sonic the Hedgehog, because at least there's some precedent there with like with like some of the games, like the adventure games or 06, right? But with Rugrats, it's a whole new bar of stupidity because it just conjures up baby geniuses. Yeah, and why on earth would anyone want to go try to possibly even go there to? That's all people are going to think about is baby genius.
The same thing. Didn't we already have a live action Rugrats called Baby Geniuses? It didn't work back then.
See, and what's funny, Romney, is when we actually tackled this in the recording is like the other thing that came to my mind is frickin' Boss Baby for some reason. Is like you're going to have stupidity like that's going to be happening in this Rugrats live action CG movie.
I mean, honestly, if you want an example of a good version of live action Rugrats, Look Who's Talking. That is basically...
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, Look Who's Talking and Look Who's Talking Too. That's basically live action Rugrats. That's pretty much. We already have it.
In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Look Who's Talking is the inspiration for Rugrats, isn't it?
Sort of. With Klasky and Supo, it was a classic case of, they came up with this idea because they both barely became parents and they noticed their babies were doing weird things. They thought, hey, that's kind of funny. Let's make this into a show.
Yeah.
But yeah, we already have live action Rugrats. It was done much better before and in a much more simpler way where you didn't need arbitrary CGI. I mean, you even had, I think Bruce Willis was the voice of the main character in Look Who's Talking to bring this full circle. And so it's a case of, it already exists. We don't need it.
Yeah, and I mean, you brought up Baby Geniuses, Alex, but the other thing that comes to my mind is, I think it was E-Trade, where they tried to do the babies talking about stock portfolios and stuff like that. That's the other thing that comes to mind. Those were stupid.
But thankfully, those are like 30-second commercials, which are skippable. I don't need to sit through a 90 to 100-minute movie of this.
Agreed.
And it's not like they tried to turn that into a TV show like they did with the Quiznos Baby and crashed and burned, rightfully so.
What?
Yes, that they literally tried to take the Quiznos Baby and turn it into a TV show, and it didn't make it past the pilot because everybody and their mother basically said, why the hell are you making this a TV show?
They tried that with the Geico Caveman too, and I'm like,
which again raised the same question: why the hell are you making this a TV show? The only difference is that actually got to air, and I saw it. It wasn't that good.
No, it was horrible. But geez, man. So basically, what you're saying here is that they can join like Bubsy the Bobcat and Battletoads, where they may have gotten a pilot off, but they didn't get the series off the ground.
Yeah, but point being here, I think you were pretty much seeing the two minds at work here. You're seeing Nickelodeon going about it the smart way with a new series, and then there's Paramount saying, let's make a live-action CGI movie.
Well, because Paramount's making such amazing decisions, cough, cough, Bumblebee, cough, cough.
But to be fair, the Transformers movies have been profitable, so from there, there's at least a case of, there's at least not as inept because Transformers, also a precedent for doing it in CGI because it's not like we literally have robots that turn into cars that can actually walk into an audition and audition for these roles. No. I mean, it's justified, but it's just...
But they pretty much I'm gonna argue with you on this one point. Their most recent is not. I don't think it's going to be as profitable as people think it is, because the villains that they've already picked for that Bumblebee are basically like prima donna Decepticons. So at that point, it's going to be the Transformers equivalent of Mean Girls. That's what it's going to be.
Honestly, if someone decides to make an actual recreation of Mean Girls with prima donna Decepticons, that could even be the title, prima donna Decepticons, I would watch it.
I think they've already done it, because they already cast the new villains. It's going to be two of the. I think they've been later. Their names have been retooled into like Viacons and stuff like that, but they're basically like Lamborghinis and the sporty cars, and they're going to be making fun of Bumblebee. And I'm just like, well, that immediately does not get me interested in this film, now does it?
Well, yeah, but I'm literally talking that they literally take the script and setting of Mean Girls and just have it completely reenacted with Transformers. Like, you don't even have action scenes arbitrarily put in. It's just literally the same movie, shot for shot, beat for beat. Just replace all the women with Transformers.
And then I guess I have to ask this question. Okay, so unlike Sonic, where they can actually, and I think I'm not there with you, Alex, on the Sonic movie. I'm not there to where I'm excited. But I think you and I can both agree on this. What is real and what is CG? Okay. How do you do this with Rugrats, people? Both the parents and the kids were CG or were animated.
Well, in this case, the parents would probably be entirely real. The babies would probably be, I don't know if they'd be all CG, probably just CG enhanced to, make them talk and move around a bit more fluidity. So obviously they don't have to rely too much on
exactly what they did with Baby Geniuses.
Yes, exactly. It's just baby fucking geniuses, and I don't know why Paramount is trying this. I think they did the original Baby Geniuses. Let me look. I'm pretty sure.
Look it up. I think we need this answer now. But yeah, that's like the issue that I have here is like, how are people going to know it's Rugrats if not for the unique animation style? But if you think about it in a live action atmosphere, Tommy Pickles is going to look kind of weird.
Honestly, the only way I can see this working, and I doubt they would go in this direction since it would have a lot of really dark implications, would be, the characters accidentally come out of the show and are in the real world. But it's like, that seems like a funny idea, but then you realize, wait, these are literally babies that get lost in our real, terrifying, effed up world. Who would pay to see this? Except for people who are completely demented in the head.
I would go out of my way to make sure my daughter never sees a trailer for this. She would never know it existed.
Anyway,
I'm at least willing to let her see the original Rugrats movie because at least that had a good plot line to it. Somewhat. Anyway, sorry, Alex. You found your answer.
Yeah, no, I was wrong. Baby Geniuses was produced by TriStar.
Oh.
It was directed by Bob Clark. Oh, man, you fell so hard.
So yeah, this is kind of the issue that we're having here, people, is like, okay, the series we can get behind. That's an interesting idea to bring those back in this day and age to see how well they would work. It's the movie that throws everything off. It's the movie you don't want to make.
Yeah.
Nobody gonna like it.
Yeah.
Look, I know that there are people like, say, Andre the Black Nerd who will go out and see it, okay? He will go out and see it. He'll give it a chance, and good on you, Andre, that you can do that. But I will literally look at that trailer and go, no, Alex, we will not be seeing it for Dragon Shadow Vlogs. I refuse to see this film. This looks ucky.
Yeah, and my reaction when they reveal the trailer will probably just be, ah!
I think it's going to be repeated a couple of times at that point. But yeah, guys, that's accurate. He's gonna pull like a nostalgia critic. He's like, and it's gonna be appropriate. It's gonna be deserved. Alex,
or I'm gonna be brain dead, like the nostalgia critic in the Baby Geniuses review, where I'll basically just be like completely catatonic.
The other thing that came to my mind is when Spoonie and Bennett the Sage reviewed Garzy's Wing, where something became so stupid it killed Spoonie, and then about 10 minutes later they had something so stupid it resurrected him. Yeah, there you go. Alex, final thoughts on this one. I think we've all pretty much covered it. The series has promise. Yeah. It's the movie we have issues with.
Just don't do it. Don't. It's a bad idea. It's not going to lead to good things, Paramount. Please. Please. Somebody grab Paramount and slap them. Slap some sense into them.
So what you're saying is you're advocating that Paramount needs a spanking?
Well, I think they're a bit old for spanking, but somebody needs to slap some people upside the head over there because this is just bad idea written all over it.
Yeah, honestly, there are a bunch of other.
I now need this. I need this on a T-shirt of Alex going up to like the director of Paramount, and it looks like Tommy Pickles. He's like, pff, 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 "This is such a stupid idea," and Tommy's just crying.
Well, that's a little dark.
It got a little dark there, but I mean, yeah, dark comedy kind of works.
Yeah,
I don't think I need Tommy Pickles in there. Just the CEO of Paramount or whoever
or
is
maybe the
in charge
CEO
of
of Paramount
greenlighting
looks like
projects
Pickles.
over there. Just whoever's in charge of greenlighting projects over there needs to get some sense slapped into them.
Yeah, honestly, looking at this, I'm just like, there are so many other Nickelodeon shows that would make better candidates for live action. Of all the shows to pick, why Rugrats?
Yeah.
Yes. Why?
I mean, heck, I'd even take a CGI live-action hybrid of Cat Dog over Rugrats, because at least there, it's justified. It would be horrifying.
What's funny is, if you actually go out into the internet, there is such demand for other series compared to Rugrats. Like everybody, like I've gone out to a few people and said, like, how do you feel about a Rugrats TV revival? And they've all kind of looked at me and went, I wish I could have gotten this instead. And it's been a couple of examples. One of them brought up Clarissa, and I had to tell them, no, that's technically happening. But then we got like, I would much rather get Danny Phantom. I'd much rather get Pete and Pete. I'd much rather get Are You Afraid of the Dark? Which, by the way, me and Alex actually found out there is a movie coming. Yeah. There is a movie coming in 2019.
I mean, honestly, to throw another possible suggestion of a show that could get a good live-action version, Chalk Zone. I mean, that one you could do the live-action animation hybrid and do some really cool things with it because Chalk Zone already is a very weird show. I mean, like, that's something that's like, okay, there, it makes sense, and you could probably do something really cool with it. It's not going to happen, though, because it would be very expensive, but between Rugrats and all the other shows, I mean, even Danny Phantom makes more sense. I mean, given that there's that cult following, there's at least money to be made there. Even if you don't necessarily bring Butch Hartman back to work or even consult, there's an idea. I mean, it's a basic superhero show. I mean, how can you screw that up? Unless they give it to Sony, in which case we know how, but still.
I will say in my personal preference, if they did something with Danny Phantom, I would want Butch Hartman involved. But the only reason that I'm interested in that is because I've been following Butch Hartman's YouTube channel, and he occasionally gets into those what ifs. Like, what if Danny Phantom was 10 years later? And a lot of the stuff that he's created for Danny Phantom 10 years later, Danny Phantom dealing with this, dealing with that actually looks really good to me. And so I would want Butch involved.
Yeah, honestly, I think we've pretty much we've nailed the coffin shut so far. We're pretty sure the vampire can't get out now. This is a bad idea.
At least on the Rugrats movie. Like, the series we're okay with. Like, you could go ahead and do that, but you should be doing some of these other things. It actually blew my mind, like, a lot of the stuff that people brought up. I didn't actually even bring up, I'd actually like a reboot of Camp Salute Shorts. I would rather have Pete and Pete. I'd rather have, what is it? The 1,000 or the 100 Deeds of Eddie McDowd?
The 101 Deeds of Eddie McDowd.
101 Deeds of Eddie McDowd. I'd rather have that than retelling Rugrats.
Or honestly, if they want to do a movie with Rugrats, why even do the live action? Just do a CGI animated film.
Yes!
I mean, it worked actually decently for the most recent Smurfs film, where there's like, you know what? Forget the live action. We'll just do it all CGI and save ourselves the headache of compositing.
Exactly. It would work just fine. Anyway, so yeah, but you're right, Romney. We've kind of hit the nail on the head, and I think we've pretty much given our verdict. Like, the revival, we're okay with. The movie, not so much.
Yeah, the horse is dead. I mean, we've beaten it to mush at this point.
So
we literally have beaten it into glue.
And now our hands are sticky. Do we add the glitter now?
Sure.
And then we can create vampires. Oh, snap, Twilight fans. Sorry.
Or just really crappy Power Rangers air quotes armor.
Yeah. Or really, really crappy Powerpuff Girls costumes.
That too. So yeah, that's the last story that we have tonight, and let's go ahead and wrap things up on that. So if people want to be able to get a hold of us to share their opinions on the stories that we covered, as well as share their opinions on the content that you guys create, Alex the Shadow Blazer, how do they do that with you?
Find me here on YouTube, Shadow Blizzard 3000. It's my channel. I do make anime-related content. I'll need to decide what my next review is. I'm kind of between stuff right now. But yes, I did just review Magical Girl Sight. I also shot off some first impressions of some summer anime. And, well, I also kind of want to recommend something because I've been watching a lot of these recently. But
Alex's recommendations? Oh my gosh. Romney, are you okay with this?
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody actually pointed out like years ago, where she's like, officially, you guys have to ask Romney now if you could do recommendations. And I just barely remembered.
Oh yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I stole the idea from John August and Craig Mazin, and I didn't ask them for permission, so
pretty much. So Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, so as far as like YouTube content goes, lately I've been getting into scam baiters. These are guys who will call up like shady tech support scammers from like India, Pakistan, and whatnot, and just find all sorts of creative ways to just endlessly waste their time and just drive them crazy. So there's a few channels I can recommend that do this. One is The Hoax Hotel. He's pretty amusing. Kit Bovet's pretty great. He streams these live on Twitch and uploads to his YouTube channel. The other is Leo Takis, I think. I'll write these all down, put them somewhere.
All I could say on the matter is I'm glad that I don't work call centers anymore, because if this happened to me, I'd be pissed off.
Well,
welcome to my world.
These are not keep in mind, these are not legit call centers of people trying to make an honest living. These are people who will call up your grandparents to rip them off of their life savings. So
true.
Good. So I think good on these people. They're fun to watch, and it's great to watch these absolute assholes of the world get a little taste of their own medicine.
All right. And Stephen Romney of Studio Ghost Utah, how do people get a hold of you?
Well, you can always find me under my handle, Studio Ghost Utah. That is my handle both on Facebook and on YouTube. I am also on Instagram under Romney Does Art, and I am also on Twitter, which is probably the best way to get a hold of me. Seriously, people, stop sending stuff to Adam, under Romney Reviews. Now, for this week, I technically have two recommendations. One is something that I'm legitimately excited about that I don't have yet, and the other is a book I am in the process of reading. So the first recommendation is something that I just discovered has been announced, is that, as some of you may recall, I'm a fan of the Super Sentai series, and there was a recent announcement that kind of went under the radar that a certain Sentai series that predates Power Rangers is officially getting released by Shout Factory, and that is Chojin Sentai Jetman.
Yes!
Now, yes!
Yes!
See, yes, that was Adam's reaction. That was my reaction when I saw it. I literally was browsing because they have a sale going on for Comic-Con, and then I literally saw, oh, Chojin Sentai Jetman. Wait! So yes, we are literally getting...
I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't do this, guys. I know that people get mad when I bring the wrestling into the podcast, but I'm sorry. I have to do this. Yes! 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 Okay, I'm good now.
Yes, and so that's the first thing I'm really excited for. I'm not going to give the full premise, but the fact that we're getting a Sentai series from before Zyuranger, not to mention what is arguably one of the best Sentai seasons that Toei has ever produced, that's got me hyped as hell. But now to get 5
seasons before Zyuranger, isn't it?
No, it's literally the season before Zyuranger.
Oh, really? Okay, all right.
Yeah, and so that's the first recommendation. The second recommendation is the one that I was going to recommend tonight before I found out that, oh, wait, hey, we're getting Jetman on DVD in the United States. And many people may recall, a couple of weeks ago, I recommended a book called The Art of Peace by Morihei Ueshiba. Well, it's time to look at the other side of the coin with The Art of War by Sun Tzu. For those of you who don't know, Sun Tzu was a military general and military strategist from back in the Warring States period of Chinese history. Long story short, you had a bunch of territories fighting to unify and control China. I mean, if you played Sengoku Basara, that's basically what happened in Japan, except hundreds of years earlier. And the book, The Art of War, is a book talking about military strategy that has its applications in day-to-day life. Specifically, in addition to talking about how to wage war, it also gives you insight on how to prevent war and to wage war effectively, whether you're waging war with actual nations or if you're in business. It has actually a lot of really cool applications in real life. My particularly favorite idea that it communicates is the notion of, hey, maybe don't go to war if you can't actually afford to go to war and end it quickly. Yeah. So, kind of something you wish that the people on Capitol Hill would actually understand. How about that?
Or, I mean, you know, and you could easily interchange this stuff. Like, don't engage in a Twitter feud unless you have that certainty of victory, unless you have the facts on your side and all that stuff. Like, I haven't read the book myself, but for a long time when, you know, I like to call them the bratty years, I used to have like a tiny book of like excerpts from The Art of War that were really helpful.
Yeah, oddly enough, The Art of War is actually really short. Like my copy here, for people who see the stream, this is the entire text, unabridged. It is really short. And I mean, a good example, look at business. Like, for example, don't start trying to control your third-party developers without knowing whether or not there's other competition. Case in point, look at what happened to Nintendo with the launch of the PlayStation.
Yeah.
And so, point being, it's a book that is still surprisingly relevant. If you're going into business, if you're going into politics, even if you're going into the creative arts, it has really good applications for your daily life. So that's this week's second Romney's recommendation, The Art of War by Sun Tzu.
All right. And if people want to get a hold of me, the best place to do so is my Twitter, which is @Drac2326. You can send your questions there. You can send your opinions there. I like to have discussions with our audience because occasionally you guys kind of help shape my opinion. Maybe I don't necessarily have something as firm a foundation as the other panelists do, so that it does technically help. And while you're on my YouTube channel, please check out all the other content that I do provide. I do video game reviews, Let's Plays, a number of other bits of content that are actually going to be coming very soon because I'm actually getting ready to have a big break as my second daughter is on the way. So there's going to be a couple of vlogs as well as some additional reviews. So you guys can check that out very soon. And if you guys want to support the podcast directly, the first thing that we ask above it all else is to support the RSS feed. So you can either do so by going to geekyweek.podomatic.com or looking up the GNRO podcast or Geek News Reviews and Opinions podcast on iTunes or Google Play for Android users. That supports us directly, and we do appreciate it. If you want to support the podcast via social media, the best places to do so are under the exact same tagline in Facebook and Twitter, which is GeekyNRO. And you'll be able to get up-to-the-minute information when we're going live, the stuff we're going to be talking about. We even want to reach out and do like polls for you guys just to see what you guys think of this particular story, this particular announcement, to get a feel for what you guys think of what's going on. And finally, if you want to submit stories to us or submit feedback to help us improve, you can do so at geekyweek@gmail.com. And that's going to go ahead and do it for us this evening. Thank you guys so much for continuing to listen and support the podcast as you guys do. Thank you guys so much for the love, support, and patience that you guys provide to me as well as to the panelists. We really do appreciate all of that, both for the podcast as well as in our individual efforts. And I believe we will be back next week. Are there any holidays next week? Yeah, I believe we're going to be back next week for more Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions. So for me, for Alex, and for Romney, we'll see you guys next time.